Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. Welcome to the stream. I I was pushing this one back for a hot minute because it's always so much. It's always just so much to do the entire Space Marine roster in one big tier list. Salutations! I'm Brother Tobias. Welcome in the stream. Salutations, Lytra. It has been a while since you have been in the Twitch chat over on the YouTube side. Hello, Chris. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Maxime. Yeah, I will be talking about everything, and we got some new follows. Salutations, Gabixer TV. Hello. So, what is this gonna be? This will be. Oh wait, can I wave? I hope I can wave. Hell yeah! Let's go. So we are recording the Ultramarine tier list for the new chapter approved 2025 metagame, which means we had a new data slate with balance changes, and we had a completely new mission format in addition to new points. So compared to last time, nothing went up in points, but some of our rules got worse in this. And of course, there are new players in the game we have to talk about. But before that happens, let's go over the tiers. I will be announcing every tier before I put the unit into that tier so the audio only listeners can follow along. Right on the top, we have S tier. S tier is almost always mandatory. Those are the absolute auto take units, the ones you take in close to every single list you can. Those are the important ones, the haymakers. Then we have A tier. A tier are the building blocks. Those are your staples. In A tier are all of the units which you take in most lists and they are good, but they are not completely irreplaceable. You frequently see lists that don't take these and still win games. It's just those are units that are usually seen, but they're not completely auto take. Let me open the salutations, Michael. It has been ready to SSS. Well, I doubt we were going that far, but that's what it is. So let me open the YouTube chat so I can look at both chats on my OBS. Of course, all of the viewers, you guys can see the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat. Yes, of course. All right. B tier. B tier is the almost good enough tier, and because I'm really funny, I considered naming it the free wound infantry tier, because this is where all of the free wound infantry goes. Salutations, H chap. So many new faces, all interactive. You guys can yell at me for every single tier here, and it will be fun. So yeah, B tier are the units which are almost good enough to be staples or auto include, but there's just a problem. There's one problem if it's the metagame, if it's their points, any sort of thing that holds them back, in my opinion. A game mechanic. Something is holding them back, and that's B tier. C is a specific niche. This is a unit which is only good in one detachment or in one specific circumstance, and that is still better than D tier, but you can't take a C tier unit into A tier, in my opinion, because it would be S tier in a certain detachment, but it's just not that great outside of that detachment. So in a specific niche, excellent unit. D tier actively makes your list worse. Those are units that are just bad. You probably shouldn't take them. They're not unplayable, but taking these units is like a handicap for you. Last but not least, we have the F tier, and this time it's just the flyer and fortification jokes. It's just, yeah, they don't even register these units as, like, real units. Once again, I do not have the Thunderhawk and the Astraeus in the roster over here, and I should probably move the Phobos Captain up a little bit so he's more relevant to the conversation up here. Regular Captain, just getting the order a bit correct. Why are the captains all mixed up here? Doesn't make any sense to me. Okay. Everything else looks fine. Yeah, we have the transports, the vehicles. There's some good stuff here. Okay, yeah, the order seems to be pretty good. So how about we just start? I have my bottle of Sprite here. This will take a while. It always takes a while. So let's just start. And we're starting with Rabbouti Gilliman. Of course, the Ultramarine characters are the first thing, because a lot of people only watch the Ultramarine characters. And oh, I should make a new row. Excuse me. Add row below. I always forget. Currently discussed. Okay. And then we make this one blue. All right, yeah, here we go. So this is this bottom row is just this is what we're talking about. So if you glance at the screen, you can always see what are we talking about before I put it into a tier. All right, Rabbouti Gilliman. Rabbouti Gilliman got a lot worse. He is now blocking Kalgar from giving you a buff, which I will discuss when we get to Kalgar. And you only get a free stratagem once per battle round instead of once per turn. And I played 11 games since the data slate came out. I couldn't go to a tournament, unfortunately, and my next tournament is in 2 weeks, but I played 11 games with the new deck and the new rules, and I played a lot of Gilliman games, and you do notice only having one free stratagem is a lot worse than it used to be. However, Gilliman dropped by 25 points. He is now 220 instead of 200. Excuse me, he is now 320 instead of 345. That makes Gilliman S tier. Gilliman is really, really good. You can build Gilliman lists. I don't believe in his revive ability. Still, the free up revive never works. He doesn't have mortal wound defense, so he is incredibly easy to kill with devastating wounds and tank shocks for such an expensive model. But honestly, getting cheaper, Gilliman is really good. The way I see it is whenever I talk about the next model, and then we will have a little conversation about it. So first, let's talk about Marneas Kalgar. Marneas Kalgar got a noticeable change. You only get the command point if Marneas Kalgar is your warlord, which now means if you have Gilliman in your list, who always has to be the warlord, and you bring Kalgar, you no longer get the one extra command point. This is obviously a big deal, because extra command points are really strong in this game. There are factions taking characters that roll dice on like fives whenever they do, if they kill a model within 6 inches of the enemy home objective and they roll a die and then you get a 6 or something. It doesn't matter. We just get ACP if Kalgar is the warlord. However, Marneas Kalgar got 10 points cheaper. So this means if you take Gilliman and Kalgar, you now get 35 points back. Marneas Kalgar is still amazing. If you think about it, there is a list going around, and I will just put Kalgar right where he belongs. He is an S, and I think Kalgar is ahead of Gilliman. Let me explain why. Marneas Kalgar is the best melee unit in the Codex. A lot of people disagree when I say that because they think, well, Gilliman has more attacks and Gilliman has stronger attacks, but what you don't consider, Kalgar is twin-linked, so Kalgar has rerolls. And Kalgar doesn't fight by himself, because Kalgar comes with his 2 Victrix card. Would you rather have 14 sweep attacks at 832? Or 7 strikes at 1444? Or would you rather have 6 attacks at 833 plus 10 attacks at 522? It basically means you always have both strike profiles at the same time, slightly weaker, but Kalgar always has the same output. You don't have to pick between the offense and the defense, or the hard target and the soft target. This is why I think Kalgar, also infantry units, easier to buff, easier to maneuver around. The second point, I think you still play these two together in every detachment Gilliman wants to be in. I don't think you want to run solo Gilliman. I tried lists with only Gilliman. I tried lists with only Kalgar. I tried lists with both of them. And I even played 2 games without either. I dropped both of them. My findings are, if your detachment has advance and charge and fallback and charge, i.e. if your detachment is the Gladius or the Stormlands, you want to play Gilliman. If your detachment doesn't have advance and charge or fallback and charge, you play Kalgar. And you just take the free command point in Vanguard and Anvil Siege Force and Firestorm or whatever. You just take the free command point. Nothing changed. Your list got 10 points cheaper and you didn't lose anything for doing that. And if you play the Gladius, you just play both of them. You don't get the command point off of Kalgar, but honestly, it doesn't matter, because in the Gladius list, the one that is like really popular with the triple Vindicator and the double or triple Ballistas, depending on how you build it, that list, Kalgar usually charges something on turn 2, and then your opponent overcommits to kill Kalgar, and then you clean them up. And usually that means Kalgar dies on turn 2 or 3, which means you didn't actually lose 5 command points, you only lost 2 or 3. And in exchange, you got 35 points back. So yeah, this is my opinion. I don't think you play Gilliman by himself. I didn't like that list. I know someone took that and placed somewhere somewhat highly with an Ironstorm, I believe. But in my opinion, I think in Ironstorm, Kalgar is better than Gilliman, in my opinion. Because Ironstorm is so easy to lock down in a zone, while Kalgar just ignores all of that because you always have to fall back and do something. Where Gilliman makes all of your units more strat efficient, but at some point you have to use Gilliman. And if Gilliman is hanging back in your expansion ruin, he needs advance and charge to actually get somewhere. I think you take both of them, but only in a Gladius. Kalgar lets your G-Man survive till endgame, where G-Man will be able to run at your opponent endgame. Exactly, Michael. That is completely correct. And for that purpose, I think you need advance and charge. So I will always run Kalgar. I will most of the time run Gilliman. And in one detachment, or in 2 detachments, I will run both of them at the same time. So this is why I think Kalgar is ahead of Gilliman. I would rather have Kalgar by himself than Gilliman by himself, but ideally I want them both if my detachment rules can support it. Alright, spent a lot of time on the 2 most important models, but this is probably what most of you wanted to see. Also, welcome Dee, welcome Joe, hello Studio Sydney, thank you so much for dropping in. Did I greet Elo? I hope I did. If not, welcome to the tier list. Next model. We're talking about Tigorius. Last time, I placed Tigorius in top of B tier because I was unsure how good Tigorius actually is. And since then, Tigorius has shown up in a lot of lists. Tigorius, as always, is absolutely phenomenal in, what do I say, in Librarius Conclave, which is his detachment. In Librarius Conclave, you don't take Kalgar and Gilliman, you take neither of them, and you just run Tigorius, in my opinion. But that is a very niche situation. So is Tigorius niche? Absolutely not. Because we have Bastian Krie from the German Super Major going third place, going 7-1, only losing in the semifinals, with an Ultramarine Gladius that wasn't vehicle based, it was very combat MSU vehicle transport based. So, and that list had Tigorius in an Impulsor just to shoot the gun out. Some people really like him with Stern Guard for the reroll wounds. I still think the only real unit you take with him is Blade Guard, because he makes Blade Guard really tough. And for that reason, in my opinion, Tigorius goes into A tier. Tigorius is really good. Keep him a secret? Alright. Niche. No, not quite. Yeah, Tigorius is really good. Play with him. If you haven't tried playing with Tigorius in a while, play with him. His gun is kind of absurd. Especially now that it wounds knights on 5s, it's probably even better. And other than that, yeah, he gives you strats back. He gives you free strats, so your strat economy is close-ish back to what it used to be. So yeah, I think Tigorius is really good. Here we go. Captain Cicarius. I previously rated Cicarius high because he is pretty useful. He gives you Scout, which gives you some speed to a detachment that doesn't have it. He gives you a reactive move, which is good in a detachment that doesn't have it. And he is like a captain in combat. He's slightly better than a power sword captain outside of Finest Hour because he has lethal hits, and he has like a plasma pistol that never overcharges. There are two things that happened to Cicarius, and technically it's one thing, because last we checked, we just didn't have enough space to fit him in. Second, I think Cicarius has a problem with the base chart. The base chart now says he has to be on a 32mm base. For those who don't know, when Chapter Approved came out, Games Workshop released a document that stated what base your models have to be on. And Cicarius has to be on a 32. Now, if Cicarius is on a 25, he can charge through walls. Because if he's like an old boomer marine model on a 25, he could charge through walls, because the 1 inch of the wall trick doesn't work against 25 bases because they're shorter than 1 inch. If you can put him on a 40, it is easier to trigger the reactive move, because the reactive move on Cicarius unit is measured from Cicarius model, not from his unit. Important. If your opponent walks within 9 of your unit, but not within 9 of him, you don't get to move. You only get to move if you put him first, which means this can lead to some problems, because it means you always put yourself out on precision. You always put yourself out into pins for the threat ranges, because if you don't put Cicarius the most forward, your opponent can just stay 9 inches away from him, but still have the unit within like 8 or 7. For that reason, I think Cicarius goes into niche, actually. I still think his movement tools are really good, and I still think he is pretty decent in company heroes, but in addition of fighting for list space, and the problem with the base size, now that it's basically the worst possible size, I think I have to put Cicarius into C. Cicarius is a good unit, don't get me wrong. I agree with Joe, he should be primarisized already to get a beautiful new model, but as he is right now, the way to play around him is a bit too quick, and I think he is fighting with Tigorius and regular captains for list space. Next, we have Uriel Ventress. Now, Uriel Ventress, ever since the Centurion nerf, he got dropped off the face of the earth. So what do I think of Uriel? Last time on stream, I was pretty harsh to Uriel. I played with him since, and I honestly didn't like him very much. Now, Uriel Ventress is still a 12-inch aura of all strats get more expensive, and he gives one of your infantry units Deep Strike. The problem is most of the Space Marine infantry units are not great right now. There isn't anything worth deep striking if Centurions can't be deep struck. There has been a 5-1, no, excuse me, a 4-1 list. It was a Vanguard. If I can pull up the list for a second, I will drop it into the chat because I do think it is a really cool list. Here we go. This is Kevin Grubb's Vanguard Spearhead list from a GT, and it came in at 4-1, and that list ran Uriel with some Blade Guard, and it included a unit of Eradicators for up-down deep strike. Now, what do I think about that? I don't like it. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Uriel anymore. I think he's too expensive. I think 95 points without Centurions, I think it's just not worth it. So I'm also putting him into C tier. Between Cicarius and Uriel, I think Cicarius is worse. I'm putting Uriel ahead of Cicarius because we have a 4-1 performance right there we can look at. But we don't have any performance data of Cicarius ever since November of last year. Was the last time Cicarius was seen at a GT level. So that's basically what it is, yeah. So I'm putting Uriel ahead of Cicarius because at least you can still do some deep strike stuff. And the deep strike stuff is important for Vanguard and for Anvil Siege Force. Which, to be fair, Anvil Siege Force with Uriel is a very thematic army. Because that's basically how the 4th Company fights in the lore. But yeah, that's it. Captain Titus. The 6th and final Ultramarine character. I initially, in the first tier list since he came out, I rated him very high. Then I dropped him completely because I think he's too expensive for 70 points. And now I am actually unsure where to put him. So here's the thing with Titus. Captain Titus. Excuse me, Lieutenant Titus by his proper rank. Titus gives whatever unit he leads sustained hits 1. And he himself is a fight on death. But what else do we got? What else do we got on Titus? Here's the thing. Titus has a 5-up Feel No Pain, so he is kind of fine just as a solo model. I think if you want sustained hits on a unit, you should probably spend a bit extra to get a Fire Discipline character like a Librarian into a unit, but even then, it's basically just +1 to hit, if you think about it like that. You basically give something +1 to hit, but what I like about him and his 8 attack anti-infantry 2-up chainsword, he is 70 points, he has a 5-up Fear No Pain, he's not a lone op, but he fights on death. You can just play him by himself. I also think Titus goes into niche, but I'm putting him in the bottom of niche because he has no track record of ever seeing competitive play. I think if you need a solo model with a 5-up Fear No Pain and you can't afford a... how do I say it? You can't afford a lone op lieutenant with an enhancement, or you already have one, or you can't afford a Gravis Captain. I think Titus can do it. He still skirmishes pretty well against like Storm Boys or something, but yeah, other than that, I do like that he also has sustained hits by himself. You don't have to join a unit. So I would keep him cheap. If you want to run him, put him into a list as like a unit, and that's what I would do. Next, we're talking about the regular captain. The regular captain is pretty good. Honestly, the regular captain is a really good unit. Regular captain, you usually play him with a fist. He goes into Stern Guard or Assault Intercessors to get reroll wounds on his Death Wound melee weapon. Because once per game he can get +3 attacks and Death Wounds. With the Honor Vehement, he's completely crazy. With plus 3 strength and Firestorm. He can do some stuff. Yeah, he is a user for 3 strats, which is now in higher demand, now that Gilliman doesn't do it in 2 phases anymore. So yeah, I think the captain is pretty good. I'm putting the captain in front of Tigorius, actually. Yeah, we see captains in competitive lists all the time. Just recently, Josh Roberts won a GT with Stormlands, featuring a captain with some Sternguard veterans, which I will be discussing later. But yeah, captains are super good. Nothing to complain about. The Gravis Captain. Now, this guy, let's talk about him for a bit. The Gravis Captain is a 6-wound model with a passive rule that makes him half damage. He either comes with a damage-free rifle, and he always carries 1 enhancement in almost every detachment really, really well. The Gravis Captain usually gets something everywhere. In Gladius, you can give him 2-up save and 5-up feel no pain. In Ironstorm, you can give him 4-up feel no pain. In Vanguard, you can give him lone-up stealth. In Firestorm, you can give him -1 damage. In what else? In there was one more. In Anvil Siege Force, you can give him revive on a 2-up. Excellent. The Gravis Captain is really good. Now, in Anvil Siege Force, he's actually S tier. Because in Anvil Siege Force, most of the enhancements only go on captains or Gravis models, and he is the only applicable target for both. And he also leads the units Anvil Siege Force wants to play, which I will be discussing later. However, in every other detachment, a solo Gravis Captain is excellent. Really good unit. Excuse me. Here we go. Yeah, top of A tier. The Gravis Captain goes into A tier. Yeah, you see him all the time. The Gravis Captain is really good. Play him. Just run a solo Gravis Captain. He is one of your best models into MSU matchups like Blood Angels and Eldar, because he is really good at skirmishing and he is really annoying to kill. You can put this guy onto an open objective against a shooting army, and your opponent has to put out like 400 points of guns to kill this one model. He is so tough. That's why he is top of A tier. I think he sees more play than the regular captain. The Terminator Captain. This guy is terrible. He doesn't join anything relevant because Terminators are all bad. He gives rerolls to charges, which is like fine, but not that necessary. And he's not really that tough. You can't have a Thunder Hammer. Yeah. D tier. The Captain in Terminator armor is in D tier. He only goes into Terminators, and Terminators are bad. Don't play a Terminator Captain. Let's talk about the Captain with Jumppack next. The Captain with Jumppack got cheaper. He's now 75 points. He gives a unit +1 strength on the charge, and you get the free strat, of course. I think in Ultramarines specifically, this is not worth taking for the following reason. We don't really want to play with Vanguard veterans or big JPI squads. And usually, if you take a Jumppack Intercessor squad, you just take an extra squad instead of a captain for the one squad you did bring. So it's not that useful. He doesn't hit that hard because you don't get Finest Hour. +1 strength is kind of funny because getting to strength 5 hits some breakpoints on your chainswords, but overall, I think the Captain with Jumppack goes into niche. I will probably put him ahead of the other captains, though. I will put him in front of Titus. What is the niche for the Jumppack Captain? In Vanguard Spearhead, you can give him Lone Op, which makes him a Deep Strike Lone Op with a free Rapid Ingress. You can use that to steal primary, and you can use that to how would you describe it? You can use it to get annoying backfield charges into your opponent, because a lot of people screen 9 inches for like a unit of something, but in the late game it gets pretty difficult to screen your entire backfield. And if there's like one model that can just sneak in, he can also up down for free and sticky for free. So yeah, Captain with Jumppack, honestly pretty good. I like this guy. In Vanguard, I think he has a niche. In other detachments, I'm not that sure. The Captain in Phobos armor. This guy goes right behind Uriel, and the only reason why he's behind Uriel is because I have played him, but I didn't win my Super Major. I I didn't go 4-1, I only went 4-2. So, let's talk about the Phobos Captain. The Phobos Captain is not good. He has a gun that does 2 damage. It has 1 shot. It's not good. He has stealth. He's a captain, so he does the free strat thing. He does give you a redeploy, however. Before the game begins and before you know who's going first, you get to redeploy 3 units of infantry and you can put them back into reserves. The way I used this guy, I described in my Road to Firebug video series, where I used the Phobos Captain to redeploy my Centurions into a turn 1 walk and shoot angle. And I also used it to deploy my entire army on the board and then put some things back into reserves just to waste more time for my opponent during deployment. So if I deploy like 2 3-man Eradicator units, which normally would go into reserves, I deploy them and then I put them back. And then they can still come in, but I did give my opponent 1 extra drop for deployment. He does carry Lone Orb pretty well in Vanguard, so I do put him in niche. I don't think he's good in every list. I wouldn't run him outside of Vanguard. But yeah, I think he's fine for that. I wish he would come down in points a bit, because he doesn't do any damage. He's really bad in combat. It's just nothing impressive. The regular lieutenant. Everyone in the comments always likes to convince me, hey, the actual lieutenant is not that bad, and then nobody ever plays him. So what does that say? So he gives his unit lethal hits. And fall back and do everything. So in theory, the lieutenant would be perfect for Firestorm, because Firestorm has a fallback and shoot issue. In Firestorm is a close-ranged army with no way to fall back. But all of the units in Firestorm are either in Gravis armor, which he can't join, or they have torrent weapons, which don't need lethal hits because they hit automatically. For that reason, I think the lieutenant is bad. Like, objectively speaking, he isn't, but you never take him. I think this is a prime candidate for the first almost good enough, so in B tier. Yeah, lieutenants, they're not objectively terrible, but I don't think you have time to run with them. If a 10-man unit of intercessors wasn't so expensive with a character, I think that combo would see a bit more play. But other than that, yeah, he gives company heroes an enhancement if you have Kalgar in your list, but then you pay points and double up on fallback and do something, which is just bad. So yeah, I think he's almost good enough. I think lieutenants are too expensive and they don't have anything to join. So there's just something wrong with them. The Reaver Lieutenant. This guy is really bad. Let's talk about why. The Reaver Lieutenant makes your Reavers worse, because your Reavers have the Deep Strike keyword and he does not. So by putting him into your Reaver squad, you can only scout, which is what I do 99% of the time. But if you put him back into reserves, or you decide, maybe I do want to go for a Rapid Ingress, you can't, out of Deep Strike. You have to come in from reserve, because he does not have Deep Strike. Offensively, he's 55 points for 6 extra knife attacks. With precision, he makes the -1 OC and leadership aura 9 inches instead of 6. And he gives lethal hits, which, in my opinion, is just not enough to justify taking him. I would always rather take just 2 units of Reavers, or play a different 50-point character somewhere else. Yeah, he's just not good. He also has competition by, like, the same model, but just with better rules. So Don't take the Reaver Lieutenant. I think he's bad. D tier. Speaking of the devil, here is the Lieutenant in Phobos armor. This guy used to be popular, but he was bad because of the D6 move after shooting. That is still something you can do. You can still move D6 after shooting, but you can't charge anymore. He has Deep Strike. He does give lethal hits, but in my opinion, he doesn't contribute anything. He can carry enhancements in Vanguard because they're all Phobos locked, and he is cheap for 55. I think the Lieutenant in Phobos armor goes into niche, and the reason is he can carry an enhancement for cheap in Vanguard, and importantly, he is the cheapest model with Deep Strike you can get. And maybe that is just something you have 55 points left in your list, and you're thinking about, should I take a Tech Marine or should I take a scoring piece that can move after shooting so it can hide a bit better? Maybe that's just what you do. I think that's what the niche is. It's not terrible, but it's not exciting. The Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. This guy is really popular. He is a lone op. He has a 5-up Fear No Pain. He does a 9-inch, he does a 6-inch reactive move if your opponent goes with a 9. And before the game begins, he marks an objective and your entire army rerolls once to wound against it while he's alive. Doesn't matter where they are. They don't have to be near him. They just have to shoot the objective. This guy is really good. Not only is he the only natural lone op in the Codex for Ultramarines, because we can't play Shrike. He's also only 70 points. He protects himself with the reactive move. With stealth and a 5-up Fear No Pain, he's actually pretty annoying to kill. And the only issue he has, honestly, is he doesn't do any damage. I think the most threatening thing the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon can do is throw a grenade. Because I have never killed a single thing with his knives ever. And maybe I shot like a death wound at like a Terminator once in my life. But yeah, the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon goes into top of A tier. Staple. You see this guy in almost every list, and I think you should probably play him in every list. He might actually be super close to the three on top. Honestly, do I want to make a call? Because he got better, to be fair. The Lieutenant in Combi Weapon got better, because if you don't take Gilliman, you only have 1 oath, which means you need more wound rerolls, which means you probably take him even more often now. I think I talked myself into it. Yeah, I think the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon is S tier. This guy is so good. Pyro Bubbles killed a Big Mac in Mega Armor with knives and the Combi combined. Felt good. Yeah. Honestly, I see this guy in every list, so play with him. I think he's good enough. If he isn't in your list, it is probably because you have too many characters and you don't want to play another one, but S tier. I'm putting him in S tier. Librarian. Now, the Librarian is actively, like, pretty mediocre. The Librarian, Malum Kato proxy, fair enough. The Librarian gives his unit a 4-up invuln, which is pretty good. The problem is just it doesn't go on very good units. I think the Librarian is a D tier unit by itself, because you pay 60 points for like a decent but unreliable gun. He isn't good in combat because his psychic weapon is AP 1 and D3 damage, so it's unreliable. And I think like some people like him with fire discipline, but I really don't like him with that. I think that's just not worth paying like 100 points for. But I will put the Librarian in C tier, and I will put him right behind the Lieutenant. And why do I do that? Because in Librarius Conclave specifically, the Librarian is mandatory to take. He would be S tier in Librarius. Because without Librarians, you can't unlock any of your detachment rules. You have to carry Fusillade for your Stern Guard, so you can one-hit kill every vehicle in the game. You have to carry some other enhancement. You have to be in a unit with him to get the army rules. So, yeah, if you like Librarius, this guy is an S-tier model, but you probably don't play Librarius because only crazy people play that detachment, so I'm putting him in niche. I realized that is lower than I put him last time, which was B tier, but I think Librarius Conclave just hasn't performed in competitive gameplay in any way recently, so I think it's fine to be a bit harsh here, because nobody is really playing Librarius. It hasn't proven itself to be like a staple, so I can't really justify any higher. And I don't like the whole fire discipline thing, so I'm putting him in C tier. Next is the Librarian in Phobos armor, and I think C tier is once again pretty solid here. Yeah, this guy sees play in competitive lists often. He was in the Vanguard list I talked about earlier. I think I'm putting him right behind Uriel. Why is this guy good? C tier for the Phobos Librarian. Phobos Librarian gives his unit 12-inch loan up, so you can't shoot them. If you put him into a unit of infiltrators, your opponent can't deep strike within 12. So you always have a unit that cannot be harmed out of reserve. Your opponent can't charge them because they're further than 12. They can't shoot you because they're further than 12. And this is really good if your opponent is running indirect fire. If you are afraid of triple Plague Burst Crawler Death Guard, and you don't want to be afflicted for 6-inch Death Shroud Deep Strikes, that's just who you play. Play him. He's also good in Librarius, of course, because he gives you the Psycho keyword. He's a good model. I think he's pretty good. Makes your unit really expensive, though. 170 points, so you do pay a premium for that combo. The Librarian in Terminator armor. Now, you could argue this guy makes your army worse because you are playing with Terminators. In Librarius Conclave, he is fine. So let's take him to the bottom. No, let's take him over Titus, I think. Yeah, no, let's take him over the Jumppack Captain and below Cicarius. So C tier for the Librarian and Terminator armor. Gives sustained hits in shooting and combat. Gives you the Psycho keyword and gives you a 4 Feel No Pain against psychic weapons, which all Librarians do. Excuse me if I forgot to mention that. Yeah, with Thousand Suns coming up, you could build a list that just has the Feel No Pain against all the psychic stuff in Librarius, and he is probably the best leader for Terminators. Because Terminators want to attack the off target, he gives you sustained hits. Sustained hits is good for the off target. I rest my case. C tier. The Chaplain. The Chaplain is interesting. Chaplain gives you +1 to wound. Chaplain gives you a 12-inch once per game automatically pass a failed battle shock rule. And he has like a weak power weapon. It's like strength 5, AP 1, damage 2 or something. It's like worse than a power sword, but he has it. The Chaplain goes with the Lieutenant, in my opinion. I think he's worse than the Lieutenant, so B tier for the Chaplain. But I do think Leadership 5, if we're in the Battle Shock with the new Chaos Knights, that is enough to justify niche. The reason why I think he's almost good enough is because it's 60 points. For 60 points, giving any unit +1 to wound, so they don't have to be an Oath of Moment unit, I think that's honestly pretty decent. Yeah, the Chaplain is almost good enough. The reason you don't take him is just because you want to take the Captain instead, or Tigorius, and he doesn't buff the ranged units at all. Only the melee units. So I think the Chaplain is almost good enough. The Chaplain in Terminator armor goes into D tier. In front of both these, though. The Chaplain in Terminator armor gives you a 4 Fear No Pain against mortal wounds, which is good for Terminators. He carries enhancements in First Company, which is good for Terminators. But First Company is a bad army. You shouldn't play it because it's the worst attachment in the game. And Terminators are terrible units. And the reason why I think the Chaplain is bad is because he gives you +1 to wound. Now, the normal Chaplain does it too. So why is my problem with the Terminator Chaplain so serious? If you have +1 to wound on Terminators, you are wasting your time. Because you get +1 to wound against the off target, and both types of Terminators always want to attack the off target. Assault Terminators with hammers hit on 4s. You need oath or you will not hit anything. Your 15 attacks in a 5-man squad will miss like 7 times. On average. Without oath. With oath you hit like 10. And then having +1 to wound without getting +1 to wound is just bad. And the ranged Terminators have a rule which gives them +1 to hit against the off target. In which case, you are running the Chaplain, but then you are attacking the off target, and you don't get the +1 to wound because you already have it. That's why the Chaplain in Terminator armor is D tier. Following up, we have the Chaplain on bike. The Chaplain on bike can only join Outriders. I think this guy is also niche. I'm putting him with the Lieutenant in Phobos armor in C tier. The reason why, he can carry enhancements in Stormlands and is the only character able to do so. You usually don't even take those enhancements because you don't care, but Outriders are not bad, and if you want to have +1 to wound and a leader for them, unfortunately the other rule giving them death wounds is not that amazing, and Lytra says it pretty succinctly. Where is the Librarian on bike? That's what I want to know. Here we have the Librarian on Jumppack. This guy goes into D tier, in my opinion. I'm putting him behind the other Librarian. I have the same thought process as last time and as I have with the Jump Captain. You are buffing a unit you don't want to spend points on. Now, Vanguard veterans are cheaper, which is fair enough, but I think you want to have a mortal wound unit in a mortal wound unit. So I don't think you want to give this guy Vanvets, you want to give him JPI. And JPI don't need a leader because they are skirmish units for cheap. And sometimes you sacrifice them as a screen. And if you sacrifice something as a screen, you don't want to put a leader in it. So D tier for the captain, for the Chaplain on Jumppack. And the reason why he's worse than the Captain is because he doesn't carry enhancements well. Because he doesn't have Deep Strike for free or something. That's the Blood Angels Captain on Jumppack. This is actually the image from the Codex. I did crop all of these from the Codex, so yeah, they did that. The Tech Marine. I got so much flack for my opinion on the Tech Marine. I remember on the day I made the tier list on the Discord, that is the Realm of Ultramar Discord server. You can tag me if you want to ask a question. Yeah, when I put this guy into like C tier last time, some people got really mad because it was like, well, he carries enhancements in Iron Storm. And I'm like, but what enhancements do you want? Well, I can take the Blanca Safe, but is the Blanca Safe worth it? Because if you have 3 Dreadnoughts and one of them has Blanca Safe, doesn't your opponent just shoot the other ones? Well, yeah, but he can give a vehicle lethal hits. Okay, what vehicle are you giving lethal hits? The Vindicator wounds everything on 2+. The Vindicator wounds everything on 2+. The Gladiator Reaper doesn't want lethal hits because the Gladiator Reaper has death wounds. The Whirlwind is bad. You shouldn't play the Whirlwind. So what exactly are you doing with the Tech Marine? He can heal your vehicles, but if your vehicles get shot, they're usually dead. And he's alone up while a vehicle is nearby, which is also just weird. He does get like 12 attacks if a vehicle dies within his range, and then he can start hitting people in melee, but he only hits on 3+ in combat, which is just so unreliable without rerolls. He doesn't have any rerolls, it's just an AP 2 damage 2 axe. He has a 2-up save, but only 4 wounds, so he dies very easily to mortal wounds. So I think I'm sticking with my guns here. I think the Tech Marine goes into C tier, actually. Yeah, I'm putting him top of C. Top of C, because you do see the Tech Marine all the time in lists, but I think most of the time your Iron Storm list should just be playing Kalgar, the Lone Op, and the Gravis Captain. And you just don't take the Blanker Save, and you don't take the Lethal Hits enhancement. Because the Lone Op Lieutenant can carry the Fallback and Shoot, which is the most important enhancement in the detachment. The regular Apothecary. He revives one model per command phase, but it can't be a Blade Guard, because that would be too strong. He's 50 points, and when his unit dies, you get a CP. Yeah, the Apothecary goes into D tier. The Apothecary is really bad. I'm putting him below everyone else, actually. It's just not worth taking this guy, because he doesn't revive anything worth reviving. The best usage case you can get out of this guy, you are running a unit of Stern Guard or Intercessors with Kalgar, and then you revive the Victrix Guard models, but if you are that lost in the sauce, just play a unit of company heroes, my dude. Just play some company heroes and have some respect for yourself. Like hot damn, brother. You're better than this. Don't do it. D4, don't play the Apothecary. Bad. The Apothecary Biologist, on the other hand, has never recovered from going up to 70 points just to give lethal hits. I do, however, think this guy is really important because he's the only way to get enhancements on Gravis models. What does that mean? I think he goes into B tier, and I'm putting him in front of the Lieutenant, actually. A lot of Gravis units need enhancements, or they need to have a character for some sort of keyword. The Apothecary Biologist gets OC free, just default, and if you kill something in combat with his unit, you go to OC 9. In Anvil Siege Force, this guy is an auto-include. In other detachments, he is almost good enough. I think the Biologist needs to go back down in points because he went up because of Fire Discipline. But that was like a year ago. I think we can drop this guy back to 55 and it would be fine. The regular Ancient. Regular Ancient is not very good. He gives you he has a 4 Fear No Pain while in the center or on an objective. But just him, not his unit. And he costs 50 points. And he gives +1 OC while he is in a unit. So he himself doesn't have 2 OC. That would be too good. Aggressor meta still dead. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So the regular Ancient, I think he's bad. I think the regular Ancient goes into D tier. And I think he is barely ahead of everyone else. And the reason is he's 50 points. He is really cheap. He can guard the home field. I think it takes like 2 battle rounds of 3 Plague Burst Crawlers to kill him, which makes him pretty tough if he's on your home objective. So that's at least something. He's like a solo model to hold an objective. And that's all he does. And that is sometimes okay. The Ancient with Terminator armor has a niche because he allows you to carry 2 enhancements in first company on your Terminator squads. Unfortunately, Terminators are god-awful and unplayable. He can't join with a Librarian, so you can't even do anything in Librarian's Conclave. He gives you +1 to hit if you're wounded and +1 to wound if you're almost dead. And he gives +1 OC, which Terminators do like. They're only OC 1. But overall, the Terminator Ancient goes into D tier for making your list worse because you are taking Terminators. And I think he is ahead of the Captain, though, because the Captain doesn't do anything useful, while the Ancient at least does something useful. The Blade Guard Ancient. The Blade Guard Ancient can only join Blade Guard. He gives +1 OC, and once per game, your Blade Guard unit gets +1 attack. That is usually worse than any other buff you can give Blade Guard. A +1 attack once per game. It does apply to any characters you put into the unit, so that's good. I think people are underestimating OC 1. OC +1, because now you can cap objectives away from your opponent. And Blade Guard got cheaper. So the cheapest character plus Blade Guard vehicle you can have is an Ancient plus Blade Guard for 225. No, excuse me, for 205. 205 points for a break of dudes with 2 OC, 4 up invuln, and +1 attack once per game. It's not terrible, but it's also not very good. The biggest problem with the Blade Guard Ancient, he doesn't have a melee weapon himself. So he only gives you something else. Yeah, I do like the old Terminators with the 25 bases they couldn't even fit on. That was some funny stuff. Yeah, they are illegal on a tournament because they're on the wrong base. That's true. So the Blade God Ancient, so he should be D tier, right? Because you basically never see him. I argue against that, but I'm putting him at the end of C. Here's why. The Blade Guard Ancient is the cheapest model in the Codex. 45 points for a model. Sometimes you end up with a list that is 1955. You don't have any enhancements to cut, or you can't cut them because they are too important. You can't put anything else into your army or switch anything around without making everything worse. So what do? Just play a solo Ancient. He's one model with a 4-up invuln. He's not tough, but he's not like dying to 5-bolt pistols. It's like the most uninspired thing you can do. Just run a solo Ancient. Sometimes the points just work out like that, and it is what it is. The Judicia. The Judicia gives his unit fight first, and he himself has a 4-up invuln in melee, and he is a 7/2 precision sword with 6 attacks, I believe. The Judicia is interesting. I think in Ultramarines specifically, he is fighting with Tigorius for list space. Because Tigorius makes the Blade Guard tougher in shooting, and he gives them free interrupt, which is also some sort of melee support. The Judicia is explicitly better against melee armies, but Tigorius is better like overall, as like a whole package kind of thing. So I think the Judicia goes with the Lieutenant in the almost good enough category. The Judicia Blade Guard package is not bad. I lost to it at the German Super Major. It's not bad, but you could just be doing more powerful things, in my opinion. That's why I'm putting him into B tier. Shoutouts to Firestorm, because giving him plus 3 strength for a strength 10 sword is pretty funny. I think that is one of the funniest things you can do with him. B tier. Company Heroes. This unit got nerfed last time. They went up to 105. They didn't get nerfed again. And you still see this unit everywhere. Company Heroes. It's a unit of 4 dudes. All of them have 4 wounds. So it's 16 wounds for 100 points. They all have OC2 because of the guy with the banner. You get a damage 3 heavy bolter, you get a damage 2 death wound gun, and you get a strength 5 damage 2 power sword with 6 attacks that hits on 2s and has precision with the company champion. This unit is incredible. It is still incredible. I'm constantly working on list concepts which have like 3 units of these. Just triple company heroes, just as like a pressure thing. They're always -1 to wound, which they give to their character, but they always have to have a character. So you can never play company heroes by themselves. I think company heroes are upstarting into S tier. I think company heroes are auto-include in most lists. I think if you take Kalgar, you take heroes. And if you don't take Kalgar, you might take Uriel or Cicarius, and you still take heroes. Heroes are the first unit you think about whenever you take a character, except for the regular captain. You would play Tigorius with heroes if you could. Don't get me wrong, you would play that. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, company heroes are badass and fluffy. That is true. Why did you get D? Or did my thing not update? I don't know if you got kicked out of chat for that comment. You shouldn't have, because I don't have profanity filter on. Never mind. Yeah, they are badass. They are really strong. Play with them all the time. Good unit. Excellent unit. Play them. Company heroes are good. S tier. You see them in basically every list because Kalgar is in every list, and he's the best package. Now we go to intercessors. Now, intercessors are interesting because regular intercessors used to be like a staple, because you had to have like a battle line unit for some secret missions just to deny it from your opponent. They also sticky objectives, which is pretty useful, but the truly important buff they got was shooting double the shots if they all focus in one target. That rule is really good because it makes them a legitimate skirmish unit. 5 intercessors can go toe-to-toe with 5 Eldar or 5 legionnaires or something. They legitimately do way more damage than you would expect into like something reasonable. Like, you will not kill a tank. Don't get it wrong, but if you shoot and charge 5 Space Marines, you probably kill them. Or you probably kill like 4 of them, which is more than enough because you still have a power fist on the sergeant. You don't need battle line anymore. So I think if you have the points, you always upgrade these guys to infiltrators, but I'm still willing to give intercessors an A tier rating because they're just a good unit. Intercessors are fine. Some people play 10 of them in like a shooting brick with like a lieutenant and fire discipline because it's 40 shots. Uh, 40 shots with bolt guns, excellent. And then you sticky something, really good. Intercessors are a great unit. I should play more of them. I want to play with that 10-man brick at some point. I think that is pretty fun. Assault intercessors with Jumppack. This is another unit, really popular. They didn't go up in points. They can throw grenades. They can charge and do some mortal wounds, allegedly. They have a power fist, and you get 2 plasma pistols, or a plasma pistol and a flame pistol. And they are excellent skirmish units. Honestly, in my opinion, full stop, I think you should be playing Power Fist, Hand Flamer, and the extra plasma pistol in like a 5-man, because that makes them so much better at killing Eldar. It is not even funny. I think the D6 shots from the pistol are always better than the 1 shot from the plasma pistol. I think it's just always worth it. I regret not building them like that, but I think I'm right. Yeah. Assault intercessors with jump packs. These guys have performed because Bastian Kree, 3rd place at the German Super Major, had 3 of these. A triple JPI in his list. So I think these guys deserve their spot in the A tier. Do they deserve it ahead of the captain or below the captain? I think actually ahead of the captain, because... No, you know what? A win is more impressive than a 4-1. A 7-1. I think a 5-0 is more impressive than a 7-1, though that is still pretty impressive. But yeah, I think these two are A tier. JPI, A tier. Good unit. Regular assault intercessors. These guys have fallen off, because the captain and assault intercessor package has fallen off in total. Still, these guys are pretty good. They have reroll wounds against objectives, and you get a power fist and a plasma pistol on the same model. They give you reroll wounds in combat against an objective, which in my opinion is pretty good. And they fight explicitly for list space with the Sternguard veterans. For that reason, I will put them into A tier, and I think I'll put them into top of A tier. And we will be talking about Sternguard next, because I'm skipping the queue here. No, wait, let's talk about Sternguard. Too late. I will interrupt this battle line discussion for the Sternguard discussion. Now, Sternguard veterans. They have reroll wounds against the Oath target, and they have devastating wounds on their bolt rifles, and their heavy bolter, which you take 99.9% of the time. Did I put intercessors into B? No, I put assault intercessors into B. Intercessors are in A. So, Sternguard veterans. They also reroll wounds in combat, and all of them have 4 attacks in combat. So these guys are competing directly with assault intercessors, and there are 2 minds about it. We see these guys in lists. The issue is, but actually, I think they should be in A tier. Let's put assault intercessors up into A tier, and this will bode for the Sternguard too. Sternguard with a captain against the oath target always have reroll ones. Always have full rerolls to wound if they're the oath target. That helps the captain with his devastating wounds once per game to just have maximum efficiency into a target. Assault intercessors only have reroll wounds against an objective marker. So if your opponent doesn't go on an objective, you only get to reroll once to wound instead of everything. Which makes this a bit more swingy, because if you roll a bunch of 2s while you wound on 3s with reroll 1s, you can get exposed to some swingy dice. Or if your opponent has a -1 to hit. That is something that can happen. However, regular assault intercessors don't need Oath of Moment. So this can be an Oath-independent slammer unit, because Captain plus Intercessors, even without Oath, they will just kill Chaos Spawn or some skirmish unit, and then reactive move back behind a wall or something. It is what you take. I personally rank them like this. So Sternguard goes into A tier together with the Assault Intercessors. Bottom of A, I think Assault Intercessors are better personally, but we do have Josh Roberts winning a GT with a captain and 5 of them in Stormlands for the reroll wounds. I think both of these are equally as playable. I just like having a... Me personally, I value units that don't need Oath of Moment more than units that do need Oath of Moment. And for that reason, and because I save 25 points, I'm putting Assault Intercessors first and Sternguard behind. Obviously, in Librarius Conclave, Sternguard are S tier, because you always take the anti-vehicle 5-up brick. Heavy Intercessors. Alright, now we will begin a discussion with a bunch of units I want to talk about. Let's pull them up. Let's talk about the Gravis units. Let's start with Heavy Intercessors. Heavy Intercessors got cheaper, which is amazing. Heavy Intercessors, ever since they started to shoot with damage 2 bullets, have always intrigued me. I think my most successful videos on the channel have been with Heavy Intercessors in the list, actually. They are kind of my pet unit. I really love these guys. Putting them back to 100 is actually a lot of beef for the points. There's just one problem. And I will be talking about this with the Aggressors too. Aggressors... excuse me. Go away, Inspect Element. Aggressors also went down by 20 points per 3. Aggressors are now excellent skirmish units. Aggressors for 220 for 6 or 100 for 3. You don't get the same discount on a big unit. They went back into consideration tier because they finally dropped in points and they still have a bit of output. I received a comment last week about someone saying you can't find a melee profile like this in the codex, and that comment was correct. The problem is just for 120 points per 3, it was just not feasible to take them. Now that they're cheaper, there's actually something here. Eradicators. Knights just came out, and they have lower toughness, so the Melter are way better than before. These guys can still come in from Rapid Ingress, walk into Melter range, and screw something up. They come with inbuilt rerolls against any vehicle or monster. They have high AP, it's 4 shots, they're still tough for 100 points. And 200 for like a brick with an Apothecary and Vanguard, still good. So why do I put all of these units into the discussion tier? This is why I called the B tier the free wound infantry tier. and I will order them like this. The best are Eradicators. Second best are Heavy Intercessors, and third best are Aggressors. Let's talk about why. Every single thing in this game is damage free now. Everything shoots damage free, and I don't understand why. The blow drone from Death Guard shoots damage free. Every single Eldar melee weapon is damage free. The World Eater's Forge Fiend is damage free with rapid fire full rerolls. Knights still have all of the damage free stubbers on their Helverins. What else? Thousand Suns with the Mutile Vortex piece, it's damage free. It's all damage free. Magnus, damage free. Every single thing in this game is now damage free. And it just kills these units. Because we don't have access to Feel No Pains. And with Armor of Contempt being worse, still, since like 1.5 years ago with the nerf to it, all of these Gravis models have an issue. Now, I do think small units are worth taking. And here's my thought about this. If your opponent has to expose a 120 or 150 point shooting piece to kill a 100 point unit, and then you kill that unit back with one of your big guns, you are winning the material trade more often than not. So these units are not worth shooting if they're like small. If they're big, however, they suddenly become very worth shooting, because now you spend a lot of points to give your opponent more blast procs. Bad. Special case for Heavy Intercessors. In Anvil Siege Force, they go to A tier. Because in Anvil Siege Force, that's why I'm putting them second best. In Anvil Siege Force, Heavy Intercessors can have a 6-up Feel No Pain with the Stoic Defender enhancement. It also gives them half OC, which makes them still OC1 if they get battle shocked. And that is just a good combo, because it keeps their rule for the +1 save alive while on an objective. You get a Feel No Pain, which makes it inefficient to shoot them with damage free, because now you survive with a model more often than not. There's also something said about just having 30 wounds in like one position to hold primary. I think 100 points for 5 Heavy Intercessors walking into an objective, I think that is actually worth doing. Especially because they can just stand still and hit on 2s when they shoot back. Or they can advance and shoot, because all of their weapons have assault. All the time. I think Heavy Intercessors have potential as like a skirmish piece. Even though they do get answered cleanly by the damage-free meta, I think they're cheap enough to still try it. They're also pretty good against Blood Angels, because Blood Angels with their damage 2 have to punch through two saves to kill one model. Alright, we are like almost halfway done. That's how we do this. Incursors. Incursors and Reavers. I will talk about these two side by side in a second. Incursors are really good. Incursors give +1 to hit if you shoot something. They have Scout 6, which makes them really good for skirmishing. And they have the Haywire Mine, which allows them to once per game throw the mine within 3 inches. You do some mortal wounds. Against a vehicle, which there are a ton of, you do 2d3 mortal wounds, which is really good. Incursors also have Assault. They have AP1 in combat and are sustained. I think Incursors are a staple, and I will put them ahead of the Intercessor. I rarely ever build a list without Incursors in them. I think Incursors are really good. And the fact that they have the Haywire Mine, which allows them to defend themselves against, like, small Eldar units, or against, like... You can just sprint these guys up with Advance and Charge and just throw, like, 5 mortal wounds into a battle tank, which gives you a lot of fixing for your math. In addition to the +1 to hit, which makes you more oath-agnostic on a follow-up shot. They also have the Smoke keyword, which is sometimes just better than Armor of Contempt. because it lasts for the entire phase. Yeah, staple unit. I think incursors are seen very often, and I think you should play them all the time. Reavers, on the other hand, are the different side of incursors. Reavers are a combat unit. They have 4 attacks at AP1, which is 1 attack fewer than the incursors, but they don't have sustained hits. So they are usually just slightly better mathematically, but pretty similar. They have Deep Strike, which the incursors do not, but they do also have Scout. So you have to decide, do you want to have a Deep Strike unit that can score in Rapid Ingress, or do you want a Scout unit for early board presence? Reavers have an aura for -1 OC, which is not capped to 0. You can reduce your opponent to no OC, which makes these guys really good at flipping primary. I think Reavers are better than incursors if you want to go aggressive. If you want to play more melee with a bunch of JPI and some like captains and some maybe like Brutalis dreadnoughts, I think Reavers are good. I think Reavers are in A tier, but I'm putting them behind Tigorius in A tier because basically Reavers and incursors are interchangeable, but incursors have won the war in my opinion. They're better against vehicles than the Reavers, and that's why I put them ahead in A tier. Infiltrators. Infiltrators have a 6-up Fear No Pain. They refund command points on 5s, which is more relevant now than it used to be. And they can infiltrate. Sneaky boys. Most importantly, infiltrators have a 12-inch aura of no reserves. Now, for those of you who have not been following along, there's a new Tyranid detachment which abuses the hell out of 6-inch reserves and some stuff. There are demons with 6-inch deep strike, Death Guard with 6-inch deep strike. A tier. Infiltrators are the best unit in your skirmish slot, and Games Workshop knows it. A tier. Infiltrators are 100 points, which is the only reason they're not up here in S. Infiltrators are the best unit for the hold the objective spot, in my opinion. They're tougher than intercessors. They have the smoke keyword. They are impossible to shoot with the Librarian. And they do block 12-inch of any reserves necessary. The only reason you don't take them is because you don't have the points for them. If you run out of points, you take intercessors. If you have the points, you should just take infiltrators. I think if you have 2 units of these guys, your opponent cannot do a reserve-based game plan against your army. It doesn't work. And this combos very well if you want to go aggressive. If you want to build an army that says, we will fight in mid-board, and you have 2 units of infiltrators, your opponent has to fight your game. And if your list is built to win that game, you are at a massive advantage. The downside, you spend 200 points on 2 scoring units. Tactical Marines. As some of my fans would like to point out, Tactical Marines, since my last thrashing, won a GT in Ironstorm because they were in a Rhino and they were splitting up into 2x5 to have more scoring. So, Tactical Marines. You get 2 special weapons, you get a Sergeant with a combi and some melee, and their rule is they can split up before the game begins. They're really cheap, but they are also just terrible. Actively makes your list worse. I will give them the front spot at the foremost part of D tier, because they did win a GT. But honestly, if you just take 2 units of regular assaults for 10 points more, you just end up with 2 good units instead of like 1 bad unit. So do that. Next we have Scouts. Scouts. They haven't changed 1 bit since last time we talked. The ideal loadout, in my opinion, is chainsword, 2 knives, a sniper rifle, and a heavy bolter. That gives you 2 heavy weapons for any like synergies. It gives you the most combat you can get, which is relevant because sometimes you have to charge some elves and beat them up in combat with the knives. The knives have AP. That's why I think the knives are the best. And Scouts are in S tier. I'm putting them right here with the Combi Lieutenant, even ahead of him, because you honestly never play an army of Space Marines without one Scout squad. Scouts are a staple. You always have one unit of them, and if you don't send me your list, because it's probably bad. Blade Guard Veterans. Blade Guard Veterans got really cheap, and they have seen a lot of success since they got cheap. Tigorius with Blade Guard got third at the German Super Major. We have seen a bunch of like MSU Blade Guard in different lists. I think Grisha Gerbert from Germany also really likes Blade Guard. There is a thing you can say just running 18 of them. They are a good backup unit for Kalgar to lead if you can't afford heroes. Now, note, I still think you should. And if you can't find the 25 points to upgrade Blade Guard to heroes, you should just run Assault Intercessors instead of Stern Guard. Blade Guard meh, only good in Blood Angels. You rank them B. I think that is exactly where I wanted to put them, Mr. Popper, Michael. Yeah, I will put them top of B, ahead of Eradicators. I think they are almost good enough to see play, but they have the same issue as all of the Gravis models. They die to damage-free guns like nothing. Which is why Tigorius is probably the best leader, because he at least makes it a bit more difficult. If that World Eater's Forge Fiend has to hit on 5s, at least it's a bit dicey. Vanguard Veterans with jump packs, which are the only Vanguard Veterans. They went down to 95, which is pretty cheap. You can run... they do have a 4-up invuln, which is better than nothing, yeah. Exactly, Sean. Yeah, you are correct, Sean. They have an invuln save, but yeah, that's why I'm putting them ahead of the Gravis Marines. They're only toughness 4, though. So you get wounded easier, but you are living longer when it comes to making saves. What I like about Blade Guard, they don't need Oath. That's why Blade Guard and Eradicators are on top here. Vanguard Veterans. You can give them a 4-up invuln, or you can give them a special pistol, which means you usually take either all Inferno pistols or all Flamer pistols. 95 points for 5 Flamer pistols and a bunch of like Strength 5 AP1 1 attack attacks is not the worst. I think this is mostly interesting for Blood Angels. I still think they're not good enough. But I don't feel comfortable putting them into like D tier, I think. Yeah, I'm putting them bottom of B. Like, they're just worse JPI. If you don't have Jumppack Intercessors, you can take these guys for 5 points more. And it's not the end of the world. I think these two are pretty similar. And JPI have just, like, performed really well at GTs. So... yeah, I think bottom of B is actually correct. They are pretty cheap for 4-up invulns, but they will not do any damage. Don't fall for trying to put them with like chaplains or captains or whatever. Just run them as is. B tier. Bottom of B. Next, we have the Infernus Marines. Those guys are pretty quick. They're 90 points. They shoot with flamethrowers, which got buffed to AP1, so it's 5-1-1. They shoot heavy flamers. They cause battle shocks at -1 leadership, and they can shoot out of the firing deck, which I really like. I think Infernus Marines are niche, and I'm putting them behind Titus because the only place you will ever take these is in Firestorm Assault, because they go to strength 6, and that makes them really good at killing elves. I think if they go down to 80 points, I think we can talk about them again. Because at 80 points, they are actually cheap enough to be in the conversation for the skirmish slot. But as they are just worse than intercessors, and I don't care. Especially now that Overwatch isn't as free as it used to be without all of the CP. Terminator Assault Squads. These guys are bad. And I do think you only take these in Librarius Conclave, which is why I'm putting them into C tier. The way I run them in Librarius is with a Librarian in Terminator armor. You run a mix between shields and claws, so you can never get tagged by 10 cultists and be stuck forever. And you take some hammers, because having 4 wounds is actually pretty funny. That's actually the one thing that's their niche, is they are 4 wound models. And there's a lot of damage free running around, so maybe being a 4 wound model is just worth bringing. C tier. Now we have regular Terminators. These guys are bad. You get 1 heavy weapon per 5, which is just laughable. They have a bunch of Storm Bolters, which do no damage. They are 180 points. Looks at Death Shroud and shivers. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great in comparison. Regular Terminators get +1 to hit against the oath target, which is like you already have full rerolls to hit. Why do you get a +1? Doesn't make any sense. They have Power Fists and Chain Fists. It's just not good. I'm putting them behind the Chaplain. Honestly, I'm putting them behind the Ancient and the Captain. Regular Terminators are just terrible. They're just so bad. It's D tier. Make your list worse. Assault Centurions. These guys are actually pretty decent. John Lennon was using them in his Stormlands after I suggested it with my personal 3-0. These guys have a flat 3 damage melee weapon, so welcome in B tier. They have a bunch of bolter shots, 18 shots within 12, all twin linked, so they're pretty good at killing elves. They can have a twin linked flamer or melter, which is also pretty good. And they're 150 points for like 12 wounds of 2-up save. Because they're 4 wound models, which makes them good against the damage-free meta. I think they go into A tier towards the bottom. Because we do see these guys in Stormlands all the time. They can ride the Storm Raven, they can ride Land Raiders, which is funny for Mr. Hurtle and his triple Land Raider builds. They do punch and shoot pretty hard. The only problem is they basically need to have a way to advance and charge and shoot at the same time to get maximum value, or to be transported. So they're only good in Stormlands, which makes me think niche. But they did perform in tournaments. Let's think about this some more. What do you think, Michael? Assault Cents are niche because they're only good in Stormlands. Yeah, no more memes with Uriel. That is a good point. I think they are niche. Yeah, I was about to say it, but I think it's correct. I do think, however, they deserve to be top of niche. Because they do actually win GT level events. It's just in one list. In one list, they're good. They're good in explicitly Stormlands, because for 1 CP, they can advance and charge and shoot all the time. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Many Stormlands lists are running Smash Cap with Sternguard and cut the sense for them. That is true, they are the most cuttable part of the Stormlands. Yeah, I think niche is fine. I think we arrived at the niche. Next is the Centurion Devastator. These guys have not recovered from the Uriel Ventress nerf. You do see them sometimes in like Redeemers or as like a firing unit. I think 3 of them don't shoot hard enough. What are you doing? Just run a Ballista strat, is my opinion. Or just run a Predator. I think it's just not worth taking these. S tier at Games Workshop layout, maybe. I think Centurion Devastators are also niche because they're only good in Vanguard. Now, they used to be the best unit in the game in Vanguard, but now they're just okay in Vanguard. They're still auto-take in Vanguard because if you play Vanguard, you have to use them, but they are noticeably worse without Deep Strike. They shoot really hard with the buffs, but they do need the +1 AP buff from Vanguard to do damage, in my opinion. Because with AP2 and without Ignore Cover, the missiles sometimes just bounce and don't do anything. I think these guys have to go into C tier, and I think I will put them behind... I'll put them behind Uriel, which is pretty ironic, because this used to be the S tier combo, but now it's just in C tier for niche. Yeah, I'm putting them behind the assaults because the assaults are putting in more results than the devastators. C, my heart says B. Michael, I feel you. I really feel you. The Invicta Tactical Warsuit. Alright, I've been waiting to talk about this. Boys, I played a Vanguard practice game. The new deck came out. I built a Vanguard list. And I put in 2 Invicta Warsuits. Because I thought, man, I can use my Captain with the up-down strat. And I can put a Warsuit into reserve and the Captain for free. Because I'm targeting 2 things. And they're both Phobos. And then you can up down a warsuit, and then you come in and you do a flamethrower or an ingress or something. They also have scout, and they can skirmish with a tougher than infantry, but still easy to kill for a vehicle. Body, they have a flamer, they have a bunch of shots. And they were absolutely horrendous. D tier. These things are complete garbage. They don't do any damage. They are so difficult to hide with their stupid dreadnought frame. They have strength 14, which is useful against nothing in the game. Like, if you punch something with T7, you don't have enough attacks without rerolls to do anything. And if you attack T7, what are you doing with all of your anti-infantry strength 4 AP nothing shots? Invicta Warsuits are horrible. They are horrendous, and they get to rot in D tier until the next edition rolls out. Garbage. Here we have the Brutalis Dreadnought. The Brutalis Dreadnought does charge models. It's a 2-up save. It has a bunch of Twin Link, which is pretty good. Because it likes the oath thing. I think the Brutalis Dreadnought is exactly the same thing as the Assault Centurions, and I do actually mean that. I will put it right behind it. It is a 2-phase platform that requires 1 stratagem in 1 detachment to function. But when it does, it's like fine. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just not that great. It works exactly in Stormlands. I don't think you should play it in Ironstorm or anywhere else. It's still expensive for 160. But it is a 2-up save, and it does some mortal wounds. But if you want mortal wounds, JPI are here. So, C tier for the Brutalis Dreadnought. Here we have the regular Dreadnought. This guy is 150 points or something? 145? Yeah, we can't move through walls. If the Brutalis could move through walls, he would be a tier higher. The regular Dreadnought, he gives reroll once to hit for infantry, which in theory is a good buff because it is like Oath when you don't need Oath, but it's only a 6-inch moving thing. It has 8 wounds, no invuln, it dies to anything. And it is 145, so it's more expensive than a Ballistus. I think this guy is actually bad enough to put into F tier, but let's put him like the bottom of D. D tier basic guy. Yeah. The Invicta Warsuit is terrible. I will not talk about the Invicta Warsuit ever again. Alright. Next we have the... that's the Redemptor Dreadnought, I think? Yes, this is the Redemptor Dreadnought. Also, don't worry, guys. When the tier list is done, I will make the image with all of the unit names afterwards. So... we have just the big image with all of the names on it. I will post that on YouTube and in the Discord later. So, the Redemptor Dreadnought. The Redemptor Dreadnought has always had one issue. It shows up in tournaments every now and then, as my viewers like to remind me. Sometimes there is one guy in Ironstorm who goes 5-0 once per 3 months, and there's like 1 or 2 Redemptors in there, and then people go, haha! Isn't that... I showed you, Tobias. It's the Redemptor. Doesn't change my opinion. The Redemptor sucks. Here's why. The Redemptor only has strength 9. You cannot stack Arm of Contempt in multiple ways. It only works for 1 phase. You can't do it on 2 things. It does 0 damage. The Redemptor sucks at shooting anything. Even though the plasma cannon is damage free, it is only d6 plus 1 shot. And it also hurts your own Redemptor, because you will roll a hazard once per game. Especially if you fire multiple of these. You will roll 1 or 2 hazards once or twice per game. And then you just hurt yourself. They are -1 damage, which is really, really funny against Blood Angels and Orcs. But overall, the Redemptor Dreadnought goes into D tier, I think. I'm putting him ahead of the Tactical Marines because it is so close. If they were not 210 points and there wasn't a better version of these guys, I would actually put them higher, but the Redemptor Dreadnought is just so bad. Like, if it was 180 or 190, we could at least have a conversation about stat checking people, but he is replaced by 2 models, and one of those is what I want to talk. So D tier for the Redemptor. Here we go. The Ballistus Dreadnought. The Ballistus Dreadnought has full rerolls if your target is above half strength. And the Ballistus Dreadnought has a bunch of shots. Now, the Ballistus Dreadnought is taken in multiples in a lot of lists because the Ballistus Dreadnought is really good. It went up 10 points and nobody cared. The Ballistus Dreadnought is a staple unit. It is really strong. Ballistus Dreadnoughts are amazing. They are 140 for a 2-up save. So even though they are not as durable as the Redemptor, the fact that they are 70 points cheaper, you can buy like 3 of these for the price of 2 of those. It is kind of wild how much cheaper it is to spam Ballistus Dreads. Ballistus Dreads have long-ranged firepower, and they do accomplish something if you have Oath of Moment on the target for the +1 to wound. But 1 Ballistus never kills anything. They don't kill 2 Chaos Spawns in combat for 5 turns in a row. I promise you that. If 3 of them shoot the same target, you probably kill it. This is why you don't take Ballistus Dreadnoughts as your shooting unit. Take Ballistus Dreadnoughts as like your second wave of shooting units. Ballistus Dreads have a 2-up save and they have OC 4. And they are really good. I'm putting them behind the Infiltrators. No, I'm putting them ahead, actually. On top of A tier for the Ballistus Dreadnought. You see the Ballistus in almost every list. Stormlands wants it. Gladius wants it. You think they're S tier, Michael? I don't... Are they? Okay, Michael, you have one chat comment to convince me to S. Make it a good chat comment. Because I'm on the fence. You can sway me. I could see myself putting them in S. Matt Vic also says S. Anything you take 3 of without blinking is up there. That's a really good point, Vic. Yeah, brain dead in list building. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, you Battle Brothers, you got me. Yeah, S tier. Ballistus Dreads, S tier. Yeah, here we go, Michael. You almost always start a list with 2 to 3, and then you change if you have extra points. They defend your backline. If you have rerolls, you don't need Oath. If you don't, you have the toughness. Yeah, that's completely fair. I will make one little comment about the Ballistus Dread. I think if you build lists for WTC terrain, they are not necessary. I think in WTC, it is more important to walk through walls than it is to have a Dreadnought on an objective. I think in WTC, you go more into the Blade Guard, Tigorius rabbit hole than you do into the Ballistus Dread. But WTC is terrible anyway, so who cares? Yeah, you guys got me. I'll give it to you. Michael Vick, the Ballistus goes into S tier. You did convince me. Suppressors. Suppressors are cool. They are a 75-point unit with a 12-inch move and fly. They have deep strike. They have heavy. If they hit something, that something has -1 to hit for 1 turn for as long as the suppressor is alive. This is actually important because if you kill the suppressor, you also kill the -1 to hit effect. What does that mean? These guys are really cheap. They don't do any real damage, even if you run 3 units and shoot into 1 target. Like, with Oath, they can do something, but they probably don't. I think suppressors are honestly pretty good. I'm tempted to put them into B tier. Because they do score. The problem is just usually you just find better units to buy with your points. In Anvil Siege Force, I probably try to make space for them as much as I can. Because they do have a heavy weapon and they don't cost anything. And with +1 to wound, they're pretty funny. Let's be real. With +1 to wound, they're pretty funny. They have a small footprint too, because it's just a unit of 3. Yeah, I think B tier is fine. Yeah. Yeah, whenever you have 75 points, you're getting scouts, so try to fit an Outrider or ATV. I don't think always is true, but often is true. I do think they're almost good enough. I think, Michael, what you're describing would prevent them from going into A tier. Because if scouts are S, then something that's worse than scouts would be A. But I think it's a bit worse than that, so it goes into B. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah. I think they're fine. I think I'm putting them ahead of all of the character models, but yeah, I think suppressors are fine. They do more on turn 1, and I like them more than the ATV because the ATV can't go through walls. I think that is a big... They are B because they see no play because of competition. Completely reasonable. I understand. Completely reasonable. Speaking of which, Outriders. Outriders are pretty good, huh? So, Outriders. They move 12 inches. In Stormlands, they auto-advance 9. They have 4 wounds per model, which is super relevant right now. When they charge, they go to damage 2 and strength 5, which is good at killing Chaos Spawn. They have a bunch of twin-linked bolt rifles, but they can usually never advance and shoot and charge, unless Stormlands, but you never pay for that. Where do we put Outriders? Outriders are pretty good at move blocking, but they're pretty bad on like dense terrain because they can't go through walls. I think they go with Reavers into A tier. I think in Stormlands you always run 1 unit, but if you want to run a unit in Gladius, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think A tier is pretty good, yeah. Flavor Town B, like the most bottom of A. I think A tiers. I think they're better than Assault Intercessors or Sternguard. Are they? I'll put them with Reavers for now, because I think Reavers are like one of the things that do some stuff. Hey, thank you for hanging out, D-Rec. If you want to finish the tier list, you can just watch the VOD on my channel later, no problem. It's not gonna go anywhere. Outriders go into A tier for the goodbye comment for tonight. Next, we have the ATV. The ATV, in my opinion, goes into niche. Here's why. It's an 8-wound vehicle. It's an 8-wound mounted unit. It can't go through walls. It is, like, reasonably tough. It shoots a bit, I guess. It can reactive move, which I do like. And honestly, it doesn't have a real datasheet rule. That's, like, the one thing. It doesn't do anything. Because the datasheet rule is completely irrelevant. However, they do have a niche. And that's why I'm putting them top of C. Why is the ATV top of C? It's only good because it's cheap. Yeah, it's 60 points. There is nothing else that is 60 points in the codex. So if you end up with a list that is 1940, you take an ATV and you move on with your life. This is the same reason why the Blade Guard Ancient is at the bottom of C, but I think the ATV is a much better model than the Blade Guard Ancient. You see ATVs a lot. Usually they drive into the center for area denial and they die. And that's all they do. That's what it is. Inceptors. The last Gravis unit we have to talk about. Inceptors are theoretically really good. The problem is they didn't go down in points. They can't 3-inch deep strike. They can only 6-inch deep strike. But their guns are really good. The problem is their guns are not better than vehicle guns. Plasma is not better than a Vindicator. And bolters are good, but bolters need a lot of support in the form of Oath and other stuff. So you have to ask yourself the question, do you pay 240 for 6 bolter inceptors, or do you pay 200 for 10 heavy intercessors, and you have some primary play? I think inceptors go straight. Michael, I disagree on A. I don't like the bolters anymore. They do some work against demons, but even then, all of the big demons have free up saves now. Ever since they got buffed. Ever since the greater demons got buffed, they have like free up armor saves, which means if they have cover, which they very easily get, the bolterceptors are a lot worse at killing them. You still take them in Vanguard, absolutely, but I think like top of B, I think they're better than Eradicators. Worse. I think they're worse than Eradicators because Eradicators are cheaper. That's basically what it boils down to. I like 6-inch deep strike. I love my up-down in Vanguard, but it's just... Yeah. Yeah, you are juicing them up with Oath and Storm of Fire, which is obviously where they are the best, but yeah, B tier is fine. I think it's not important where they are, but they fit right into the Gravis hole. I think losing a 240-point brick to a Forge Fiend is really bad, and that's why the B tier of the Free Wound Infantry curse is just filling up with all of the contenders. Alright, now we're talking about speeders. Let's make this quick for the two we never use. The Storm Speeder Hail Strike is bad. It gives +1 AP into infantry. And it doesn't do any damage. It's the cheapest speeder, it's fast, it's a bit tough, it has deep strike. Cool. Usually, +1 AP is the same thing as Ignore Cover. So that's the same thing. And it's just, it doesn't have any good guns. D. Putting it in front of the Tech Marines, maybe. Here we go. No, it didn't win anything. It didn't win any tournament. So I'm putting it behind the Tactical Marines. Alright. D tier. Next is the Storm Speeder Hammer... No, that's the Thunderstrike. The Storm Speeder Thunderstrike. It gives +1 to wound against vehicles and monsters, which is pretty good. A lot of armies take these things. Hammer Strike A or S? No. I completely disagree. I think a lot of armies who want to... Yeah, okay, yeah, Thunderstrike, yeah. Thunderstrike is not S tier, yeah, we got it. Yeah, it's the Thunderstrike. The Thunderstrike, the Thunderstrike gives +1 to wound against vehicles and monsters. In Deathwatch, it's a staple. It hits on 2+, which I really like. So I do think armies without Oath, so if you don't play with Gilliman, which you might in Ironstorm, I think one of these is like fine. I'm tempted to put the Thunderstrike into niche. Yeah, let's put it into niche. Yeah, it's niche. It's not bad. It's not D tier. I think right with the Centurion, like right behind the Centurion Devastators. I think if you play an Ironstorm without Gilliman, and you play like 2 Vindicator, 2 Reapers, 2 3 Ballistas, 1 Hammer Strike, 1 Thunderstrike, I think that's a good list. I think that's a decent list. Yeah, it definitely helps, especially if you don't have double Oath. Now, the Storm Speeder Hammer Strike. This is the one with a bunch of strength 9 shooting. It has 7 shots at strength 9. Most of it d6 damage. It has deep strike. It can rapid ingress into melter range. It gets buffed by Stormlands with -1 to hidden wound. It shuts off cover, which is a really good benefit for Space Marine shooting, because we have a bunch of AP-free guns which really want to ignore cover to put those battle tanks to 6s, or to put those infantry to nothing while we blow them up. Yeah, this is really good. This is the partner in crime of the Ballista strat. And honestly, the only reason why I don't play them often is because in Gladius you have a strat for ignore cover. That isn't to say that they're bad in Gladius, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I do think hammer strikes are really good. I don't think I can justify S tier, but it is close. I agree, Michael. Yeah, they are really cheap. They delete anything with Oath. If you have multiples, you can spread more cover. That's a good point. They do cover each other, so one shoots with cover, the other one doesn't. If they tag team, they can also just bully units. If you fly into melter range of like a 3-man unit of Custodes, you just kill them. You just win that fight because you are still like a flying rhino. Yeah, I think I'm putting them into A tier. I think S is not. I have no compelling reason to put it into S whenever the unit isn't in. It's a normal tank that's 125. Yeah, that's a pretty good point. I still think it doesn't show up in the mainstream Gladius build, so I don't think it's S tier, but I'm putting it into high A. I think I'm putting the Hammer Strike ahead of the Gravis Captain. Yeah, I think you can build a list without a Gravis Captain. The Gravis Captain is just really good, but I think, yeah, T9 and isn't it 11 wounds? I think it's 11 wounds. Yeah, good vehicle. Good stuff. Really like the speeder. A tier. Hellblasters. I know Mudkip, Mukip, if you are still watching the channel. I know you're not in the Ultramarine Discord anymore, but I still see you on Out of War. He wins GTs and RTTs with Hellblasters all the time, and he uses them as like a skirmish unit. He throws them onto an objective, kills something, and then they shoot on death. That is not compelling enough for me. They are not great. Can I justify niche for them? Can I justify almost good enough? Yeah, I know Michael has similar opinions about Hellblaster as me. To be fair, I did recently play a game of Anvil Siege Force, and I managed to do a stationary firing deck +1 to wound hits on 2s shooting phase with them, and that was super fun. Why take Hellblaster when you can take Stern Guard? Because they don't need Oath. Hellblasters don't need Oath. You can throw Hellblasters into a skirmish spot, and then you can 2 for 1. Or you can like 1.5 for 1. You disembark, or you advance onto an objective. You kill 5 elves. A bunch of elves kill you back, and you shoot on death, and you kill like 2 extra models, so you do like 4 damage against the vehicle or something. Is that worth 110 points? No. But I think we're getting closer. But B tier sounds just wrong. I'm putting them ahead of the Redemptor Dreadnought. Into D tier, Hellblasters in D. I think Hellblasters are getting better. I think Hellblasters are closer to competitive play than the Redemptor. It's just 90 points would be like a spot where I would be like, I think if they make the big unit 200 and the small unit 90, we could have a conversation. But that's basically where I would be on Hellblasters. Eliminators. Now, I just told a story. I made a Vanguard list, and I built for the new missions for a test game, and I played an Invictor Warsuit. And because I didn't have points for the Lone Op enhancement, and because I hate myself, I played a unit of Eliminators. And I played them with the bolt rifles. And I was like, I will put the captain in there. and then we can fire and fade, and we can shoot precision at a bunch of characters now. And if there are any characters stepping out, we can precision them, and otherwise we are stealthy. We can score some points. It was terrible. Eliminators suck. They're really bad. They suck. They are so bad. And the reason for that is they're still 85 points. They got nerfed like 2 years ago for an interaction that I can't even explain anymore because nobody remembers, because no one cares. And they never went down, and nobody is taking them. They have not seen competitive play in like 2 years. And nobody has ever thought, maybe don't make them 80 points. If they were 70 or 65 or something, I think 65 points would be generous for this unit. It would be a spot we have points open for, because sometimes you have a 65-point list. That would be just perfect. And they do score points because they have a fire and fade, they are stealthy, they are easy to hide, they have infiltrate, but they're just not doing any damage. Even the last foozles are just not worth taking. D tier. Until they get points buffed, I'm putting them into D tier. They are better than the Reaver Lieutenant. I'll be fair about that, but yeah, I'm putting them down here until they get buffed. Desolation Marines. Now I know a bunch of people who took my list from the Firebug Open didn't like Desolators very much, and I know I cut Desolators from my Vanguard, but Desolation Marines are so good with plunging fire and double oath. You have to believe me. Plunging fire Desolators in like Anvil Siege Force are so goddamn good. Highly meta dependent. BA with meta, I think it's worse than that. I think it's C tier. I think Desolators go into top of C tier because I have a reason for that. I think with you can no longer afford the command point economy of putting them into Death Doctrine Storm of Fire every turn, because you no longer have the Kalgar Gilliman CP machine. I think that playstyle is completely dead. You don't have the command points for it. But if you play on WTC or UKTC terrain and you look at the map pack before you get the lists, and you're like, man, I can get plunging fire for 5 turns, Desolators are the best unit in your list. The difference between giving them AP 1 and having AP nothing is night and day. With AP nothing, they don't kill the average Eldar unit. That's the biggest issue. But in Anvil Siege Force on plunging fire terrain, they are nuts. They are completely nuts. What about Vanguard with Gilliman? I tried that, Ega. Thank you for your chat. I tried that. You can watch my Road to Firebug tournament report. And the contradiction I found with Desolation Marines in Vanguard is Desolation Marines force your opponent to push you, to get aggressive into you, because they can't deal with the indirect unless they have their own indirect. And the problem is Vanguard doesn't want to be pushed. The Vanguard Spearhead doesn't want the opponent to run at you. You want your opponent to stay away, and the Desolation Marines work against it. They also hog Oath of Moment and the Stratagem away from all of your other units. So I don't think it's good enough in Vanguard unless you build like around it, but I think if you build around Desolators, just go Anvil Siege Force and play on a different terrain format. That's my opinion on Desolation Marines. C tier, but I'm putting them top of C. Because if you play on plunging fire terrain, they go into S. They are completely busted on plunging fire terrain. Actually, good in Angelic Inheritors, that is true. Speaking of good in Inheritors, we have some Devastators. Devastator Marines, they can flip a hit roll to a 6 once per game. And they come with 4 heavy weapons and some combis. I think Devastators are bad, but they're not like completely awful. The problem is just they need Oath and they don't do enough damage. For 120, it's like kind of worth it. The problem is Do 4 Devastators actually shoot harder than 5 Heavy Intercessors? I don't think they do. I think they can chill with the Tactical Marines. Like, right behind them. Because you can, in theory, do something with, like, a blast weapon plasma cannons. And then you use that to do, like, a bunch of blast. And then it's, like, good blast with, like, damage 2, D3 shots. But it's just, I think the points just don't work out for me. They also can't have any good leaders. And we don't have a way to lone op them, unfortunately. So I think they go into D tier. But I don't think they're, like, completely bad. Like, completely unusable. But I can't think of a niche they actually fit. Speaking of niches, we're talking about the Firestrike Servo Turret. The Firestrike Servo Turret is really funny. You always play it with a Last Talon. You never play units of 2. You play them in 1s. And honestly, what the Servo Turret is, it is like a worse Ballistus Dreadnought. Because 2 of them are 150, which is 10 points more. They're only T6 and 6 wounds, which is a lot worse. But they basically shoot the same. Because you get a twin-linked Last Talon, which is like, it hits on 2s without rerolls, but it wounds on, it has strength 10 twin-linked, it overwatches on 4s. So it's, and it also has a 2-up save. So these are very similar. I think you never take these in like a serious list anymore, because they did lose a niche. I think the Hammerstrike, the Firestrike Servo Turret lost one niche, and that was Bring It Down. If you build a list with Bring It Down, if you build a list with 0 vehicles, if your opponent draws Bring It Down, they can immediately discard the card and draw a new card. That is still the case, and so the trick used to be you play an all-infantry army and play 1 servo turret, so your opponent has to keep the card. And if they kill the turret, they score 2 points. The problem now, Bring It Down got buffed. You have G-Man, that's your monster. That is exactly it. And second, Bring It Down now gives 4 points. And Bring It Down for 4 is actually worth doing. And if your opponent gets 4 points for killing your turret is just not up to snuff. So I have to put the servo turret down into D tier, and it breaks my heart because I had them in D tier originally. They moved up into C because of some stuff with Firestorm and like as a backup Last Cannon and Librarius. But then they just dropped back down because now it is just Bring It Down for 4 points out of the tactical deck, out of a 6 wound model, is just too easy to score. The servo turrets, it is funny if you put it into reserves. I know Thomas Bird really loves this thing. Shoutouts to Thomas, he's such a cool guy. But yeah, it's just not worth running, in my opinion. F for the servo turret. D tier. Here we go. Whirlwind. The Whirlwind shoots indirect, and he doesn't kill 5 elves behind a wall because the Whirlwind is ass. Whirlwinds are terrible. They don't do any damage. They are AP 2, but they don't ignore cover. If you give them ignore cover, they don't have enough shots to make that worth it. Whirlwinds can never benefit from plunging fire. And Whirlwinds, they just don't do any damage for what they cost. They're just bad. I think they're just worse than Dezos. They go into D tier, no question. The question is where. Are they worse than the Invictor? I don't think so, but it's pretty close. I'm putting them ahead of the Invictor because, man, Whirlwinds are bad. Honestly, no. I would rather have a Terminator unit and an Invictor Warsuit in my list than a Whirlwind. D tier. Bottom of D. Next, we go to the Gladiators. We have the Gladiator Valiant. Honestly, this might be the first vehicle to go into B tier. The Gladiator Valiant is the worst Gladiator, and the problem with it is it costs the same 160 as all the other Gladiators. And now in Black Templars, it's actually pretty good, because for 165, you get like 2 extra Melter Shots, and it synergizes well with its toolkit. It is honestly not bad. The problem is just it's too expensive for having like a slightly better Predator with like worse rules. I think that's the big issue. I don't think these things make your list worse, but I'm willing to listen to the argument. No, I think they're almost good enough. I think the Valiant goes into bottom of B with the Vanguard veterans. I think the Valiant is like fine. Assault Centurions with the new IKS. Excuse me, what do you mean with IKS, Gabino? D. It wishes it was a hammer strike. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm putting it into B, almost good enough. If you run a Valiant in your list instead of a Reaper, you will not lose a lot of games because you did that, but you will not do yourself any favors. So it's like fine. If it gets cheaper, it would actually be good. I think it's almost good enough. The Lancer. The Lancer goes, honestly, bottom of A. The Lancer is like a ballistas dreadnought if it tries to be serious, but dies way faster. I think the Lancer is fine if you play more melee in like a WTC kind of way, and you just need to cover your angles across like one lane. And otherwise, you just go into combat. It shoots better than a Lancer, a ballistas, but it is not as consistent as a ballistas because it has fewer shots and you can't use it to bully objectives. So I think it's just the worst ballistas. And I think that gets it in A tier because they are like fine, they're just not great. Bottom of A for the Lancer. It's better than the Valiant. The Gladiator Reaper, however, is really good. Now, what's going on with the and Imperial Knights? Assault Centurions with the new Imperial Knights? Maybe. The problem is still... Actually, it's a big problem because now the wound characteristics don't work out, Gabino. Going back to the Assault Centurions, I will highlight them here. Because armatures no longer have 12 wounds, you now have to connect an extra save into them. And I think that actually hurts Assault Centurions more than it helps them. Because now you have to wound an armature. What was it before? You have AP2, they have a 5-up save. You wound on freeze now. That's pretty good, actually. You wound on freeze with Twinling. That part is great. But you had to connect 4 saves, so you had to wound them like 6 times. Now you have to wound them like 8 times or 9 times to get 4 saves through. 5 saves through, and that is just... I don't know. I am not a fan. You have 9 attacks, and you have to wound them with 5 of those. Or like, do you have to wound them with like 6 or 8 to get the... Yeah, not the biggest fan. Yeah, I don't think they're that great. In Stormlands, maybe, but I would rather figure out something. I think you do more consistent damage to a knight with the Incursor Haywire Mine than you do with the Assault Centurions. In Stormlands, absolutely. If you still like Stormlands, go ahead. Now, let's talk about the Gladiator Reaper. The Gladiator Reaper is awesome, and it is your best splash model to kill infantry. If you have a vehicle-heavy list in Ironstorm or a vehicle-heavy Gladius, and you just want to have a backup, just in case you run into 20 Genestealer Cult Neophytes, if you run into 20 Orc Boys, you run into whatever the hell, if you see an infantry unit and you put Oath and +1 to hit on it, and you put Storm of Fire on this bad boy, or crit 5s, it explodes. This thing will kill a 20-man unit of anything from full to dead. No questions asked. If you get into 12 with some amount of buffs on it. It is so good. And worst case scenario, yeah, they shred any invuln save. That is pretty good. You can kill A full squad of Death Shroud, maybe not a full squad, but you can kill like 2 or 3 of them. Especially if you shoot AP1 ignore cover. AP2 on the Tempest Bolters with ignore cover. That also adds up, honestly. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Because the main turret is twin-linked with death wounds, the Reaper is basically also just a 24-inch grenade. If you play into Knights, you can just line up the Reaper, shoot the Reaper, you don't get sustained hits, who cares? And you just fish for the 6s on the twin-linked, and you probably get between 2 and 3 mortal wounds out of the Reaper. And that is still a big help. Like, it's not worth the points, but considering it is otherwise like a dead model in the matchup, it still does something. So I do think the Reaper is excellent. It is an auto-include in Ironstorm. It is frequently seen in the current Gladius mainstream list, and I do think the Gladiator Reaper is your best splash zone tank to cover up a hole in the matchup. It's also really good into elves. The Overwatch is always funny, because if your opponent has like 5 Votan models to contest an objective, and you can just press Overwatch just for fun. Because maybe you kill them, maybe you kill enough of them. It can happen. Sustained hits 2 is a wild time. With that said, I will put the Gladiator Reaper into A tier, and it goes into top of A. I think it goes behind the Incursors. I think with the Captain. I think it goes with the Captain. Equals Dark Eldar loses. Against Dark Eldar, Scourges with their last cannons are a bit of an issue. If they can keep playing the hop back and forth game, that is kind of annoying, but you can basically, if you can cover an objective at an angle the Scourges can't get to, you can just keep overwatching whatever walks onto the point and it dies. That part is pretty funny. I have to give you that. That part is pretty funny. Yeah, Gladiator Reaper, I'm putting him in A. I think, honestly, it should go next to the Thunderstrike, just because of Ironstorm. I think if we talk just Gladius, I think it is with the Captain for like a solid option. But I think in Ironstorm it's an auto-include, because with crit 5s you take this every time. The Predator Destructor. The Predator Destructor went up to 145. Am I seeing that right? Predator Destructor. Is it 145 now? Predator Destructor. 140. Okay. At 140, it is competing explicitly with the Ballista Dreadnought. The Predator Destructor, it gets +1 AP against infantry, which with the incoming Knight meta is less important. It has a Seeker missile. It has a bunch of damage-free shots. It has 2 last cannons, which goes to AP 4 against infantry. All of that is like fine. The problem is I think the Ballistas is better than that. But the Ballistas is S tier. I think the Predator Destructor is almost good enough, but it is better than the characters. I'm putting it ahead of the... I think I'm putting it ahead of Suppressors. I think if the Predator Destructor was still 130, I think we would see it everywhere. I think at 130, Ironstorm just spams 3 of these in every list. As it is right now, I think a different Predator just does it better. And that Predator is the Predator Annihilator. Now, Michael, I don't know if you are aware, but Bastian Kries, 3rd place finish at the German Supermajor, 7-1, included, I think 1 or 2, I think 2 of them, 2 Predator Annihilators. They are 135, so they're cheaper than Ballistas, and they actually do more damage than Ballistas with Oath. They are basically a more offensive version of the Ballistas Dreadnought, where the Ballistas Dreadnought is a quality model that can hold space. The Predator Annihilator is a pretty good let's do some damage in shooting unit, actually. It moves 10, it has 4 last cannon shots, and it is reroll damage. So if you get a bad damage roll, you can just reroll it. The last cannon on top is strength 14 twin linked, I'm pretty sure. It is stronger. It is stronger. I'm pretty is it strength 14? It is, right? Predator, Predator, Predator. Annihilator. Yes. No, it isn't. Predator. No, it is. Yes. Strength 14. So yeah, it wounds basically everything in the game on 2s. With Oath. And it has reroll damage. And I think the Predator Annihilator is just excellent at killing other Predators. I think the Predator Annihilator is what Ironstorm wants to spam. If you want to maximize Ironstorm, I think you play 3 of these. I think you play 3 Annihilators, 3 Ballistas, and like 2 Reapers and some Vindicators, and then you're good. I think that's a good list. These guys are really good with Oath, and they are probably just better than the Lancer. So I'm putting it into A tier, and actually, because it finished so high in a tournament, I'm putting it with the Captain. I'm putting it behind the JPI, not behind Tigorius. Yeah, I'm putting the Annihilator behind Tigorius. I think in Ironstorm they're excellent. On top of B, I disagree. They went 7-1 at a super major, and in Ironstorm they're actually just one of the best things to spam. They're worse than the Ballistas, but the Ballistas is S tier. And I do think if you have a need for a dedicated ranged unit, it's better than the Ballistas. I'm putting them in A. Now, let's talk about some good stuff. Alright. The Vindicator. A controversial model. Now, a lot of people in the Discord believe I don't like Vindicators. And that is not true. I love the Vindicator. My only issue with the Vindicator is the Vindicator is a pure casino cannon. Oh, I'm getting a DM. Hit me, Michael. I'm getting a funny shot, probably some dice. Yeah. So the Vindicator is a pure casino cannon. You never know what's gonna happen whenever you shoot a Vindicator. Whenever you shoot a Vindicator, you can do 0 damage, you can do 200 damage. You don't know what happens before you roll the dice, but Oath of Moment with +1 to wound and rerolls to hit gives you an estimation of what could happen. So, the Vindicator is, objectively speaking, the best unit just as a general shooting piece. The thing is, Vindicators rarely kill something in one shot. They can, but they don't always do. But the thing is, if a Vindicator shoots at something, that something will take damage. There is no way a Vindicator shoots and does actually 0 if you have Oath on it. Or you get like really unlucky. But if it's an infantry unit of 20, it will kill some models. If it's a elite infantry of Sanguinary Guard, you will kill a bunch of them. If it is another Vindicator, you will hit like a solid 5 wounds off of it. There will always be something the Vindicator can do. Vindicators are really good, and the only thing I want to debate now is, are they S or A? A. I'm tempted to agree. The reason why, Stormlands doesn't play Vindicators. We see them in Vanguard now, with the -1 to hit. I'm paying attention to the Vanguard meta. We see them in Vanguard now for the -1 to hit. Another thing I really like about the Vindicator is it can shoot in combat. So detachments without fallback and shoot, like Vanguard and Anvil Siege Force, even though Anvil Siege Force has a fallback and shoot, but they can just drive into combat and just shoot. They don't need to fall back. They can just stay in and shoot. Yeah, Vindicator goes into A tier, but I do think it's top of A. I think it goes ahead of the Hammer Strike because of the mainstream Gladius list that we did. Yeah, you must have deleted the picture. 6 wounds into a Rogel Dorn. Damage was... Ooh, that sounds good. Yep, that's what it is. Vindicator getting 6 wounds past the save, doing 9. That is the Vindicator experience. I recently shot a Ballistus Dreadnought for 4 damage, and afterwards I shot a Thousand Sun Sorcerer for 20. I think I handed a Sorcerer of the Thousand Suns 4 saves, and I did 20 damage. I overkilled it by 5 quadrants. 5 times over, yeah. Vindicators are good. Honestly, should they just be the top of A? Yeah, I think they should be top of A. Vindicator, top of A. Next, we have the regular Land Raider. Regular Land Raider is bad. I'm putting him with the Tactical Marines. And the reason is it transports 12 models. It never got the transport upgrade from the Repulsor, I believe. So you can transport a Gravis unit with a character. And other than that, the guns are just not very inspiring. You get 4 shots last cannon. It gives you assault ramp, but it's also the slowest Land Raider because it only drives 10 instead of 12. And it has a heavy bolter instead of a death wound gun. Like, what the hell are we doing? The normal Land Raider is not very good. I think it goes... You know, as bad as it is, I think I'm putting it ahead of the Whirlwind. Yeah, regular Land Raider is just not doing a whole lot. Oh, I'm getting the picture. Yeah, that is sick. Michael, that is sick. That's some honest old Vindicator action here. That is some good old honest Vindicator gameplay. Now, can I get an image in here? Can I copy this? Oh wait, no, let's delete, remove, duplicate. Okay, I'm not gonna fudge around with OBS right now. It was exactly what Michael said. Vindicator in action. Alright, next tank. The Land Raider Crusader. Now, the Land Raider Crusader, you might initially dismiss as a bad unit. It can transport 16 models with the usual requirements. It has the grenade keyword. It drives 12 instead of 10. And it trades the 4 last cannon shots for a bunch of hurricane bolters. Now, there is something. It transports the Kalgar bodyguard, which is completely true. There is one more thing it does. Hurricane bolters are actually legit. And it is only 220 points for a toughness 12 2-up save brick. Mark Hurdle was going to a GT with triple Land Raider, 2 Redeemer and 1 Crusader for points reasons, but the Crusader is like, it's completely fine. It actually does kill a bunch of infantry. It also has 5 OC, which is pretty fun. And in Anvil Siege Force, you can do some stuff with it, because you can charge something with your Land Raider, and then you can spend 1 CP at the end of the fight phase to fall back onto an objective, and then flip that objective in your turn, or you fall back at the end of your opponent's turn onto the objective, you flip it for yourself, and then you stay stationary, and then you can put up crit 5s with 2-up ballistic skill and sustained hits. Like, you don't get +1 to wound, but it's still pretty funny. Yeah, the Hurricane Bolter is legit pretty good with Oath. The Hurricane Bolter is legit pretty good with Oath. I think it's niche. I'm not gonna say it's like B tier, but I think the Crusader is better than a lot of people think. I'm putting him ahead of the Infernus Marines. I think that's fair. Next, the Land Raider Redeemer. I have a controversial take. I think the Redeemer is really good right now. I think the Redeemer is actually really good right now. Hear me out why. There is barely any toughness 12 in the game. The only toughness 12 model that is in the game is Mortarion, and then it's like the great unclean one, Rotigus stuff with the +1. But other than those models, the Nurgle Prince, thank you, Michael. Other than that, like, if you have Death Guard covered, the Strength 6 Flame Cannon will wound anything in the game on 5s. And it still overwatches like a truck. People are skimping on anti-tank, which might change back now that Knights are coming out. Eldar actually have a pretty hard time to get rid of this thing. Because, like, yeah, you can walk 5 Fire Dragons with no Overwatch into range. But will 5 Fire Dragons actually kill a Land Raider? I mean, you wound on 5s, and I'm saving on 4s in cover. Like, it's... on 5s, excuse me, yeah. I'm saving on 5s in cover. Like, if it's a full unit, yeah. But what happens... but also, if you put a Fire Dragon unit within range of the Land Raider, with Ignore Overwatch, that means you can put nothing else within range of the Land Raider. Because if any other elf unit even flinches within 12, I will kill it. It dies. It's gone. I think the Land Raider Redeemer is due for a comeback. I think it involves a different kind of list than what we are playing. I don't think you can move some units around. But I think if you were to go for a more MSU melee style type of like a Gladius build, you ditch Gilliman, you keep Kalgar, you play Tigorius, you play JPIs, a Captain with Stern Guard, something like that. And then you put a Redeemer in as like your like a firing base. I think it's good. Yeah, could see some play in Blood Angels with MSU. Yeah, we are an Ultramarine tier list, so this is a bit of theory crafting. I think I'm putting the Redeemer into A tier in front of the Lancer. I think the Redeemer, even though it's expensive, I think it's a bit overlooked right now. I think the Redeemer is actually pretty good. Alright, next, we have the Repulsor. I think that's the... Yeah, that's the Repulsor, the normal one, yeah. That's the regular Repulsor. The regular Repulsor is niche, in my opinion. I think these two are gonna end up pretty close together, because I don't have any respect for the Rep X. Even though it might objectively be correct. I think the Repulsor, the regular Repulsor, it gives you charge protection. It is 16 wounds. It doesn't shoot that hard. It has a bunch of small shots and some lasers. It gives you charge protection, which makes it good in some matchups. In Librarian's Conclave, I always play it with the Stern Guard, because I don't want to get charged. It tank shocks pretty well, but it only moves 10. It has an indirect fire Hunter Killer missile, which is hilarious. Yeah, I'm putting it into niche. I think it's exactly what it is, niche. Yeah, I think with the Hammer Strike is like fine. I think that's fine. Next unit. So C tier for the Repulsor. The Repulsor Executioner is pretty similar to the Redemptor. That I actually agree. Instead of the 2-up save -1 damage, you just have 4 extra wound and 12 toughness. You have a bunch of guns. In Ironstorm specifically, it gets a bunch of extra stuff. I know there was some person going 5-0 with like triple repex recently. It was a Teams event, to be fair. And it wasn't an Ironstorm, but honestly, Ironstorm with Gladius rules is, for me, is the same army, in my opinion. I just think it's worse. It's because you can make the gun actually work with the reroll. I think most people run the Plasma Cannon, Michael. I think most people actually just run it as an extra Redemptor. And they just take the Plasma Cannon. Because at least you have 2 shots. Sometimes you have more. Yeah. I'm putting this exactly where the other Repulsor is, maybe ahead of it. I'm putting it ahead of the Repulsor. Ironstorm fans don't lynch me for this. I know you guys love your Repulsor Executioner. I always hated this thing because the datasheet rule is just garbage. It can transport something now, which is better. It is probably good in teams, in like a gun castle, and it works in Ironstorm. So objectively speaking, maybe it should be like here, but I don't like it, so I'm putting it here. C tier. Next, we have the Rhino. The Rhino goes straight with the Tactical Marines into D tier. It can't transport any relevant units, but it did win a GT in Ironstorm. So even though I'm putting it into D tier, I'm putting it right with the Tactical Marines. Next, we have the Razorback. The Razorback will also end up in D tier for the same reason. It goes with the it goes straight with the Devastators because it's a combo. You shoot with the Razorback, you disembark with the Devastators, and then you have full rerolls to wound. Hooray! It's a 290 point combo, which does like 0 damage, but you did it, Chief. You did reroll some wounds. Congratulations. C tier. D tier. Next we have the Impulsor. The Impulsor is pretty good. The Impulsor transports actual units. It has a 5-up invuln. We have seen some funny people play it with the command point refund thing ever since the Kalgar change. Which I think is mad, because if you get melted, you will feel like a dumbass. So you just take the Shield Dome, trust me. Yeah, Impulsors are pretty good. I think they're not S tier, because you don't play them in every list, but I think they're good. The Impulsor goes... I think it goes with the Assault Intercessors and the Stern Guard. That's right where it belongs. I think you take this in a lot of lists, because it's the best transport for your Captain package. And with that said, maybe the Captain goes with those guys. Just to make this package thing really sing here. You can also take the Impulsor with Cicarius and like Tigorius to shoot out of the firing deck. You can do niche stuff, but in terms of mainstream success, Impulsors are fun. They're just good. No complaints about the Impulsor. It's like, it's 80 points, which is completely reasonable for a transport. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Impulsor good. Thumbs up, A tier. Next we have the Stormraven gunship. The Stormraven gunship is... is this rude to say it's... Now, objectively speaking, it's probably niche. But I want to discuss it a bit. Okay, the Stormraven gunship. The Stormraven is a toughness 10, 14 wound airplane, which doesn't have to play as an airplane because it's hovering. And it has -1 damage all the time. It has a bunch of shots. It has so many guns. It is like the original Primaris vehicle. It has so many guns. It is crazy. It is a beast in Stormlands. S tier. Because you can make it -1 to hit and wound. And now that Death Guard no longer ignores modifiers, the only faction that cleanly shoots it off the board is Necrons. And even Necrons, they are afraid of getting shot by it. It has a Hurricane Bolter, which makes it incredible at killing infantry. Twin-linked, +1 to wound, hits it all. It has so many bullets, and it does so much damage. It moves 20 inches. It can transport a Dreadnought to deliver it into a perfect firing angle. Even though I didn't do so well at the German Supermajor because I'm really bad at 40k, I think the Stormraven is really strong. But I do have to admit, it is only good in Stormlands. I would not play it in Ironstorm. I would not play it in Firestorm. It's just not worth it. I think niche, but I think I'm putting it ahead of the Desolation Marines. It is niche because it's only good in Stormlands, but I think it's really good. In Stormlands, it is like an auto-include. You start the Stormlands list with the Stormraven before you put Kalgar Gilliman in. Next is the, whatever, is that the Stormhawk Interceptor? I think so. It's an airplane. It goes into F tier. It sucks. Next. This is the Storm Talon gunship. This one is slightly better because it gets like a +1 to hit into non-airplanes. You can technically use this as an Eldar counter by rapid ingressing the airplane, flying into their deployment zone and killing all of their infantry, but like who cares? Do I give a shit? No, it's bad. It's better, but it's bad. The Hammerfall Bunker. The Hammerfall Bunker Overwatch is for free. So if you want to have more free strats, the world's your oyster, king. But it goes into F tier because it has OC0, it can't move, it's a building, it's expensive, it doesn't do anything. It was pretty cool in the Space Marine 2 cutscene. That's like what it is. F tier. Now, the drop pod. The drop pod is pretty interesting because Games Workshop has announced a new drop pod. We have not seen any rules for the new drop pod. But what if it's good? Will the new drop pod just be the same unit as it is in the Codex? Drop pod is going to be S. Hey. It's not impossible, but where do I put this? I have to judge it as it is right now, right? Yeah, the drop pod has to go into F, right? Yeah. The drop pod as it is right now is an F tier unit. Let me explain why. So, in theory, the drop pod can be used as like a turn 1 redeploy. The drop pod can deep strike on turn 1. It cannot rapid ingress on turn 1. If you disembark from the drop pod, you can't charge, which is hilarious because it makes it useless for melee. The drop pod, you can use it as a turn 1 redeploy for like a unit. You can put a unit in the drop pod, you deploy your armies, and if you go first, you can deep strike into a firing angle and then kill something. The problem is, nothing with relevant guns goes into the drop pod. Devastators are not good. Gravis Marines can't enter the drop pod. Blade Guard can't charge. Desolation Marines, no. They want to be stationary. What else do we have? Like 10 Intercessors, some Infernus Marines. That's like pretty fun for like a meme strategy, but that's kind of it. And the problem with the drop pod has always been it cannot move. It is a vehicle, not a building or a terrain feature. It is a vehicle. So if your opponent charges the drop pod, they are attacked in combat, which means you can't shoot them. Which means if your opponent has fall back and shoot, yeah, melee armies love them because they can just charge your drop pods, don't get shot, and then they pile in and kill your drop pod, and then on their turn they charge your army and you lose the game. A bad drop pod placement is a free slingshot into an auto loss. I feel justified with this opinion because we haven't seen a single drop pod actually do anything. And even if we had, Uriel Ventress is right here. You can give deep strike to better units than the drop pod. They can come in on turn 1, but you know, it is what it is. Uriel Ventress is at least a useful model because he has some other rules. He can go into the best unit in the book, which is the company heroes. And yeah, drop pod into F tier. Drop pods are terrible. Now, if the new drop pod comes out and it does something new and different, this opinion will change. But the drop pod is actually worse than D tier because it doesn't make your list worse, it actually loses you the game. Because an experienced opponent will abuse your drop pod and lose you the game. So, here we go. That was the list. We did it in under 3 hours. I'm pretty proud of myself. I don't think we took many shortcuts. Let's go over the list. Do I want to rearrange anything now that we are standing? I think S tier is fine. I think infiltrators... Are infiltrators too high? I don't think they are. I think infiltrators are really important right now. Should the hammer strike be... hate infiltrators with a passion, man? I don't want to play against Tyranids without infiltrators. I have to be so honest. But I could see putting the hammer strike in front of them. Yeah, I think I'm putting the hammer strike in front. Because in the end, the infiltrators are not vital to your game plan. The infiltrators are a tool to counter your opponent's game plan. They are so expensive. That's the main problem. They are 100 points. So yeah, I'm putting the hammer strike ahead of the infiltrators because you can build Stormlands without infiltrators, but you can't build Stormlands without the hammer strike. Okay, next. JPI, Tigorius, and Annihilator are up here because of the 7-1 at the German Super Major. I think the Captain, Assault Intercessor, Sternguard package can go up. And should I concede and just say Sternguard are better than Assault Intercessors? I think these two units are so similar. I really don't care. You prefer Outriders over JPI? I think JPI are so important to move through walls. I think moving through walls is so important. Yeah, again, I'm not touching the units that went 7-1. And I also used JPI in my Vanguard at the 4-2, and that was probably one of the best units in my list. I also think they might actually get pretty important now to do some mortal wounds into knights. Because together with Incursors, having a skirmish unit that can hit knights is actually pretty important. Yeah, I think Reavers and Outriders are fine. Redeemer, Lancer. Maybe the Lancer has to go down. If the Lancer goes down, the Valiant has to go down. Honestly, let's do that. I think the Valiant goes down into D tier next to the Redemptor. Because it's in a similar spot where there's just a better option in every way. So it can't even be a niche. And then the Lancer goes down into B. I'm still putting it ahead of, like, the characters no one ever takes. Yeah. I'm putting the Lancer into B. Because I think the Annihilator is better than the Lancer. I think the Annihilator is better than the Lancer because it's just cheaper. And it does around the same damage. Lancer is better than Biologis. Let's put it next to the Predator. To have the fun. Better than Aggressors? I would like to wait on that judgment until we see some results on Aggressors. And if those bloat drones ever get nerfed, maybe those units can finally leave the free wound jail. Aggressors can go down with Biologists? No. I think the free-man aggressor units are legit. I think the skirmish aggressors are legit in theory. The problem is everything in the game just kills them right now. I don't think you play these together. Okay, what about C tier? Is there anything in C tier I want to put in D? Honestly, no. I think this looks good. Yeah, looks fine to me. Looks completely fine to me. Maybe the Phobos Lieutenant, but I still think as a 55-point deep strike unit, it has a spot in like a cramped list. The Blade Guard Ancient is only in C tier because it's the cheapest unit in the Codex, and sometimes you just end up with a 1955 list and you just take it. Yep, then D tier. Yep, I think that's fine. And then F is just what it is. Right. Battle Brothers. That finishes the big tier list. We did it. We actually went there. We did actually finish the whole tier list in just about 3 hours, right? Yeah, here we go. 2 hours and 50. I have to cut out 10 minutes of intro music, but that's fine. Thank you so much for watching. I know most of my subscribers always wait for the tier list in every slate. You guys really love the tier lists, and I'm always trying to be a bit open about what I learned since the last one and where I land on some units. So, what are some of my wishes for all of this? I wish Space Marine Infantry would just get a buff. I think Space Marine Infantry is just not shooting good enough. I think Space Marine Infantry needs fire discipline back. I think that's honestly what it is. Yeah, maybe make fire discipline as it was. Make it 25 points for 5-up crits as it used to be. And then put a restriction on it where you have to put it on a captain. Make it so fire discipline, or it cannot go on a lieutenant or biologist, so you can't stack the crits with the thing. I think that would really help a bunch of our units out. And what also would really help if we had a better defensive strat. If Armor of Contempt got unnerved, it would help the infantry a lot. Yeah. Alright, those are my opinions. To give a final answer to good old Chris, thank you for coming back after your dinner. If you still play Kalgar and Gilliman, don't worry, still good. Just play the same list you used to play, it will be fine. And with that said, courage and honor, Battle Brothers. We march for McCraig.